Good evening. Welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Ask that all council members please return to the desk here. This time we will invite Pastor David McKenzie from the St. Timothy Community Church to lead us in tonight's invocation, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me and please stand, Pastor McKenzie? Press the button. Press the button. Press the button, sir. There you go. There you are.
Amen. Let us pray. Lord God, we come to you in prayer tonight, God, for the city council meeting, for all that are here, God, for all that are involved. We pray for unity in the community, God. We pray, God, that you would lead, guide, and direct hearts and minds this evening, that you may be glorified and that the city may be blessed from those that are leading. We pray, God, that you would give us wisdom, but with all thy getting, let us get understanding as we deal with the issues that need to be dealt with tonight. We pray that all things will be done decent and in order, God. Let cooler heads prevail, God, and be glorified in and through this meeting. And we pray these things and all others in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Face the flag, put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pastor McKenzie. We appreciate your prayers here tonight, and we thank you for your service to our community in the greater San Bernardino area. At this time, I would like to recognize Councilman Sanchez, who'd like to make a recognition of our city clerk and city attorney.
I would like for our two elected officials, the city attorney and the city clerk, to please come up with me, please. I'd like to make this presentation here for them. So tonight will be the last council meeting with our city clerk, Gigi Hanna, and our city attorney, Gary Sines. Gigi Hanna was elected as city clerk in 2012, and from that beginning, she has demonstrated her passion for ethical and open governance. Gary Sines was elected in 2013. A lifelong resident of San Bernardino, during his time as city attorney, he has pushed to return San Bernardino to the glory that he remembered as a young man. So here for Gary Sines is a plaque, a show of appreciation of the city for your hard work and your dedication to the city.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It has been a great honor to serve the city of San Bernardino as the city attorney. I'm not much on big fanfare. I don't have a speech prepared, which most of you are very happy about. I would like to say that the opportunity to work with my co-workers at the city of San Bernardino has been a wonderful experience for me. So many good people, and still to this day, I meet people that I didn't know well before I knew them by sight, but I meet them and I get to know them a little bit, and it's really been a pleasure. That has been a really great experience for me. Also, of course, I have to thank my staff. My staff when I came here was an in-house staff, almost 20 people. Now I have a two-person staff, Kimberly Green and Crystal Johnson, that are still with me. Were with me when I first arrived in 2013, and they continue to do hard work, and they're wonderful people to work with and a great staff. So I owe a hearty thanks to those two and all of my staff who have worked with me and helped me actually work together with me to perform what we needed to do for the betterment of this city. I also have to say that what I believe this city's major strength is, in addition in addition to the good bones, when I was campaigning, I used to talk about the good bones of San Bernardino, which is, you all are familiar with them, the mountains, the abundant water, the transportation facilities, railroads, the airport, the gateway to the rest of the nation, and so on, all these wonderful things that so many other cities don't have. And it's those things that give this city so much potential that our continued hard work is going to realize that potential to make this city a world-class city. Also, I believe in the people of the city of San Bernardino. I'm inspired by the people. There are many, many, many more good people in San Bernardino than there are bad people, hardworking people that have the same aspirations and dreams and hopes that most of us do, and people that are also going to be contributing to making this city a world-class city and a great city once again. And lastly, I want to say that I am probably most inspired by the 50,000 plus students at the San Bernardino City Unified School District who attend school. Each of those children with hopes and dreams of one day succeeding and being happy. My hope is that when that materializes and those children grow up to work and raise families of their own, that they do that here in San Bernardino. And that will happen if all of us here present today continue to work hard. I know I'm going to after I leave the government of San Bernardino. I'm not leaving the city. I'm going to continue to work hard to make this city the world-class city that I know it ultimately will be. Thank you very much.
Now the award, Gigi Hanna, City Clerk, from March 2012 to March 2020.
When I ran for office, I told people that, God willing, and the voters too, I would be here 8 years. And 8 years has gone by so fast. But I just want to tell you all thank you. And I've been honored, so honored and grateful to serve this community. We moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I've never lived anywhere as long as I've lived in San Bernardino. And you all feel like family. And I just want to thank you all.
Thank you.
I just have one more thing I'd like to add now that Gigi spoke. You know, she's the first person that I met when I came to the city to do whatever I had to do to become a candidate for the city attorney's office. And right from the beginning, we established a good relationship, and she has supported me and been there for me whenever I've needed her. So I thank her for her friendship, her hard work for this city, and I have the greatest gratitude and respect for you, Gigi. So thank you.
Thank you. So I want to send my deep appreciation to the office holders of our city attorney and our city clerk. It's with great dedication you've shown the city of San Bernardino. We wish you the best in your future endeavors and careers, and it's our hope that you will continue successfully in those endeavors. This time we'll open it up for council members to make comments on both Gigi and Gary. Councilman Charette.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Gary, I have a question for you. Get to the mic, please. Yeah, you're not done yet. You're not done yet. I would like to know who was the first person to reach out to you and suggest that you run for city attorney?
That person was Councilperson Fred Charette.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I might add that we didn't know each other at the time. Gary's name and another fellow's name who escapes me at the moment, a couple of good attorneys in town, their names kept popping up as potential candidates to run for city attorney. And they both turned me down. Gary I talked to, I said, you don't know me, but I'm Councilmember Charette, and you should run for city council, I'm told. And he said, well, yeah, thanks very much, but I just can't. It's not right at the time. That was the first time. The second time, I did the same thing again. And he finally agreed, but not to me. He agreed to Pat and Jim Morris. They've somehow twisted his arm. But Gary, it's been a true pleasure to become your, really, I consider you a close friend. I also want to commend you because you really worked hard and diligently to help us change our charter that really was going to put you out of a job. So I appreciate your service to us. I appreciate what you've done. And more than anything, I appreciate your friendship very much. And Gigi, I don't have as many little things to say about you, but you and I have been good friends. You've been such a support of mine, and you've always returned calls. We've talked. I've appreciated your service very much as well, and I wish you both the very best as you move forward. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Are there any other comments from council
Right here.
members? Councilman Mulvihill?
Yeah, Gary, we were sworn in the same day together. You, city attorney, myself, as 7th Ward councilman, so I bear a close relationship, at least to your tenure and my tenure as well. But I also remember that I first met you when we were both together on neighborhood housing services, working for affordable housing, among other things. And then you went off to become a restaurateur for a while. So I've followed your career in many ways and variances that it took. So I've really appreciated your friendship and looked forward to it in the future. Thank you, Gary.
Very good. Councilman Nichol?
Yeah, well, I share the same sentiments, and I do want to thank Gary for the, the public didn't see everything that we had to deal with during the course of our bankruptcy, during the course of restructuring the city in a way that needed to be done. And I commend Gary for your dedication to that. You were solid. You were reliable counsel. I know I turned to you a number of times during the course of both the bankruptcy and the charter revision that we went through. And I remember hearing from constituents on both in terms of the bankruptcy and our charter saying it could never get done. And Gary, you never wavered, and you've been committed to this job. And I just thank you for your commitment to the people here. And I hope you won't go anywhere, because I know what your commitment is to this city, and it's deeply heartfelt. And I think you will continue to be an asset to this city going forward, be an elected office or otherwise. So thank you. Thank you for your service. And Gigi, the same. I think Gary hit the nail on the head. I remember the first time I sat down with you. You are a committed public servant, and I appreciate the work you do. I know you've got a long career ahead of you, and wherever you end up, whoever you end up with, they are going to be very lucky to have you. And we wish you well, and I know you're going to do great things in your career ahead. So thank you for your service to us, and we wish you both well. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our closed session
No, we have
report.
a speaker here at the podium. I'd like them recognize them. I think it's another recognition for both our electeds who will be leaving us shortly.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Sanchez and Mayor and Council. On behalf of Senator Connie Leyva, she has sent special recognitions to our City Attorney Gary Sines and to our City Clerk Gigi Hanna.
Thank you. Also from Congressman Pete Aguilar's office, welcome.
Hi there. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and residents. I'm Andrea Harlan, and I'm here tonight representing Congressman Pete Aguilar. We also just wanted to take a moment to say thank you and appreciate our honorees tonight, City Attorney Gary Sines and City Clerk Gigi Hanna. I mean, 6 years and 8 years, that's a long time. And we just want to say thank you for helping to guide us through some of those dark times and really bringing some positivity to the city. And the blood, sweat, and tears, countless hours. I mean, Congressman Aguilar has also been a council member and knows all the work that goes into the behind-the-scenes city operations. So we want to say thank you. And on behalf of Congressman Pete Aguilar and the U.S. House of Representatives, I also have certificates of congressional recognition I'd like to give you.
Also joining us from Assemblymember Eloise Reyes. Sir, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Prince Ogidipe. I am a district rep for Assemblymember Luis Reyes. I am here today on behalf of the Assemblymember to honor the incredible work of Gary Sines and also Gigi Hanna, as I've been told that's her nickname. Well, the Assemblymember wants you all to know that you two have done great work for our community, and you will continue to be blessed in everything that you do. So on behalf of the California State Assembly, I want to say biggest congratulations and good luck in your next endeavors.
Thank you. Moving on to our closed session report. Ms. City Attorney, you have a closed session report for us?
We do not have reportable action from today's closed session. We're going to have our Assistant City Attorney read out the official statement.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In the closed session, as you know, we discussed two claims the city has received from members of staff in the mayor's office relating to sexual harassment allegations. The city council has asked me to make this statement in advance of tonight's meeting. The city has strictly complied with its harassment policies, has engaged outside special legal counsel, and has initiated an independent investigator who will conduct an investigation. The investigator has asked to be expeditious while thorough. Following the investigation, a neutral report will be provided to the city for review, and information will be shared with the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to our appointment section of tonight's calendar, Ms. Sandra Kurkowski with appointment to the Animal Control Commission appointment by 3rd Ward Councilmember Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember? So is there a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve, please.
I'll second.
All right, members would please cast their votes on the appointment of Ms. Kurkowski. Unfortunately, Ms. Kurkowski is not available tonight, and she'll be sworn in at a later date, but if we could please cast our votes on that appointment.
Yes.
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 Very good. The item passes with congratulations to Ms. Kurkowski on the appointment to Animal Control Commission of the 3rd Ward. Moving on to item number 2, presentations, the Chamber of Commerce and local elected officials. Are there any chamber announcements tonight? Sir, welcome.
Evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. Good evening. My name is Colin Strange, and I'm the Director of Business Resources with the San Bernardino Area Chamber of Commerce, which is located right across the street. Just a reminder, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, the Chamber Governmental Affairs Committee is meeting to carry on discussions about Senate Bill 945. That is the bill regarding the street vendors. We are working with our local legislative representatives to find ways of perhaps making this legislation more equitable to those businesses who operate in brick and mortar circumstances. On February the 22nd at 7:30 p.m., the San Bernardino Symphony presents Cirque de la Symphonie at the California Theater of the Performing Arts on 4th Street. The evening features a stunning show of choreographed, I hope I got that word right, choreographed live circus acts accompanied by a wide range of classical music, including Bizet's music from Carmen, Ravel's Bolero, and Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, to name a few. So call the symphony at 381-5388 for information and tickets. There will be a ribbon cutting at the Indian Springs High School for the East Valley Water District, who are launching their Water Resources Pathway program for students at the school who hope to follow a career in this very important and technical field. The address is at 650 North Del Rosa Avenue. There's a number to call for more information, which is 381-1 1250. The Chamber Coffee Klatch speaker on Wednesday, February 26, at our chamber offices will be Leslie Stevens of the Doubletree Hotel by Hilton, who will be giving an update on the pretty hot tourism market that we're currently experiencing in San Bernardino, and a discussion on the transient occupancy tax, which is also known as TOT, which is a very important source of revenue for the city. Finally, on February the 27th, the Center for Individual Development, which is also known as the CID, will present a murder mystery dinner at the Elks Lodge at 2055 Elks Drive, beginning at 6 o'clock in the evening. Call 384-5426 to reserve a spot and really help support this organization, which does such tremendous, wonderful work in this community. Thank you so much, and remember, summer is just around the corner.
Much. Thank you. At this time, we'll move into a recognition of our Citizen of the Month with Councilmember Mulvihill recognizing Ruth Chafin. Councilmember?
Well, I'm so pleased always to recognize citizens of achievement, especially our small business people. And Ruth Chafin is one of those individuals who started her Ruth Chafin Interior Designs in 1979, which is 41 years ago.
Oh, don't say the number.
Okay, okay. I won't
Fly
say that.
backwards.
I won't say that
Don't
number.
say that.
But she's been very much involved with San Bernardino. She's lives in San Bernardino. She's been a member of the Assistance League, a member of the Symphony Guild, and a member of the Robert Fullerton Art Museum at Cal State. And she was also a member of the All-America Committee that designated us with that particular recognition way back some years ago. Also, over the years, because markets have changed, Ruth had to move her business to another city. But I think the point I want to make is that we need people like Ruth Chafin. We need small businesses. And I think when we succeed in attracting small businesses to San Bernardino, we know that we've succeeded in turning the city around. And so thank you, Ruth. Let me give you your certificate. And by the way, a much coveted San Bernardino City lapel pin. So guard that because people will be anxious. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you very much for this honor. I was born in San Bernardino. I raised my kids in San Bernardino. And even though, occasionally there's some little bad raps for San Bernardino, I certainly have always been proud to have represented San Bernardino in the Inland Empire, both with my business and my commitment to underprivileged kids or the symphony or many other things. And so I really appreciate this award. So thank you very much. Thank you.
I think Bill is going to take a picture here. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we invite members of the public to submit a speaker slip. We'll use both podiums tonight. When I do call your name, please, if you would, stand on deck, and we'll call your name in short order. Members of the public, please, we ask that you refrain from jeering or applauding, and this is a public meeting, and we ask for your cooperation tonight. This time, we ask for the following speakers to please line up: Paul Sanborn, Ms. Negrete, Sandra Silazar, Barbara Babcock, Ivan Garcia. Paul Sanborn, Ms. Negrete, Esmeralda Negrete, Sandra Silazar, Barbara Babcock, and Ivan Garcia.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Today, I bring to you, the people, the attention. We have an election going, and Juan Figueroa, when I was fire commissioner, he was one of my commissioners. Never missed a meeting, always had something to contribute to that meeting and whatnot, and I would hope that you would vote for him. The other thing is I want to cover last council meeting. Treasurer Ortiz come down here complaining that all of us Charter Review Committee members, basically, shall we say, are under the mayor's whatever. I guarantee you not. I've served on the Fire Commission, Station 4 up there. I went up and spent a month and a half on my own, no pay, helping the firemen there, sprinkle that station and everything. I applied for this job for the Charter Review Committee and got it. Any of you want to get on a committee, you can do it. It's just that simple. The other thing I want to cover is what was in the paper this morning. You know, there's two sides to a story. And I would tell you this much between me and you and all of you. Remember what Nancy Reagan said. Just say no. That counts for everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Negrete, followed by Sandra Salazar, followed by Barbara Babcock, followed by Ivan Garcia. Welcome.
Good evening, board members. I want to remind you that before you made the decision to promote the 7 police officers, I asked you if you had read the 5-year plan, which of course, you know, there's no response, and I don't know whether you read it or not still to this date, but decisions that impact us financially, the residents, the taxpayers, continue to happen. And not too long ago, we were faced with 2 lawsuits because of decisions that the majority of the council made. Now, there is a 9-page, I'm not asking you to read 2,232 pages. It's literally 9 pages that if you had taken the time to look out for the residents and not look out for the best interest of one person and one person only that is in that council, I believe maybe some of you would have made the better decision. The 9 pages include something that states, the charter provides the compensation for all existing officers and shall continue under the same conditions as currently under and until a successor is elected or appointed. In part, it states, as explained above, compensation for the current elected city attorney should not be reduced as a result of any change in duties. As with the city's clerk's position, when the position becomes appointed at the conclusion of the current elected city attorney's term, the city council may set compensation for this position as it deems appropriate. This could have saved us thousands, and it wasn't requiring you to read pages upon pages. 9 pages could have saved us a lot of money. Thank you for your years of service to the city clerk and our city attorney.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sandra Salazar. Ma'am, did you fill out a slip? Well, there's a Sandra here. So, Sandra, oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Hi, good evening. I live in the 3rd Ward, and I'm very disappointed about how everyone has been voting. I don't understand why we gave the police chief and the assistant police chief raises. They already make enough money, and the lawsuits are going to cost a lot of money. Please read my signs. It's ridiculous how the city is being run. It's mind-boggling. We can't afford all this litigation. It's ridiculous. Do the city a favor and please resign, John. Please. We cannot afford all your mistakes. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared. I don't know who submitted my name, but I'm glad I'm here. And Juan, I'm very disappointed in you. I had high hopes, and I just don't understand why you're siding with Valdivia. I don't get it. And Sandra, I don't know why you voted for the raises for the police chief and the assistant police chief. I don't get it either. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. Whoever put my name, I don't know. You should have told me.
Thank you.
But you need to resign.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I just may make a comment. Each of you as council members have the right to speak under the First Amendment and to speak and share your opinions. I find it highly unusual that you would have an elected member of the council come down to the speaker area. All comments can be made from where you sit at the appropriate time. That is, of course, up to you as a council, but I do need to bring it to your attention that we try to run a professional meeting and that it is highly unusual.
Thank you. Sandra Ibarra.
I came up here because I believe last time we were told we couldn't speak from the dais. Mayor, council, I come to you today as a constituent right now, a voter, somebody who voted on November 2018 for change in our city, positive change for our city. I was really looking forward to that positive change, Mayor. I'm here to ask you that if those allegations are true, only you know whether or not they are true. But if they are true, please do us, the taxpayers, and the 19,000 plus voters who put their faith in your hands to move our city forward, to step down. And lastly, my second item is on Vader, one of the animal shelter dogs that was euthanized. He was euthanized without a hearing. I found section 6.09.030 in our municipal code, hearing on declaration of dogs as potentially dangerous or vicious. And I'll summarize it, I won't read it all. But it does say that the Animal Control Division shall notify the owner or keeper of the dog that a hearing will be held and that the owner or keeper may present evidence at the hearing. The Animal Control Division shall serve upon the owner or keeper of the dog the notice of the hearing and a copy of the petition, either personally or by first-class mail by return receipt requested. The hearing shall be open to the public and held no less than 5 working days, nor more than 14 working days after service of the notice upon the owner or the keeper of the dog. This was not done by our overseeing staff at the animal shelter. I seek justice for Vader and all the animals that have been euthanized under the current leadership. And Ms. Terry Ledoux, as our city manager, please do what's right. I myself cannot fire staff. That is your duty per the new charter. And I had put Andrea Miller responsible back then, and I'm asking you to. I'm holding you accountable as a city manager to practice and do due diligence for that poor animal that was euthanized without a hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to make an announcement. I've had a couple of texts from the residents that we are not streaming live tonight for some reason. There's been a laptop go down or something. So
We are, Mr. Charette, we're attempting to
well,
fix that.
I know we're attempting to fix it, Mayor, but I want people to understand that we're doing that and tell them that we are aware of the problem and that we are trying to fix it. It's been suggested that we're trying to cover something up, and nothing could be further from the truth, but it is certainly coincidental that we're not able to stream tonight.
Our next speaker is Barbara Babcock. Ms. Babcock, welcome.
Mayor, I'd just like to make one
Ivan
comment,
Garcia. Yes,
just real quick.
the city
I
attorney.
think that it's absolutely necessary when we have people make allegations that we respond. Based on the issue of the euthanized dog, based on section 31108.5B of the Food and Agricultural Code, an owner can sign under penalty of perjury a relinquishment of a dog who's deemed to be vicious or dangerous. City manager and her staff actually confirmed that this is what happened in this case. We had a person come forward who signed under penalty of perjury that they own the dog, and because it was a vicious dog, they moved forward. There may be other people that want to assert different facts, but I can assure you that the city staff followed this code and followed the city's rules.
Thank you very much. Ms. Babcock, welcome.
It's not really a happy day in San Bernardino lately. I've only been here for 14 years, but I really do love this city. And Gigi and Gary, I'm going to miss you guys. I campaigned for both of you. I know I was a pain in the tail at times, but when I believe in somebody and something, I say it. Thank you for your service. Mr. Valdivia, I think you love this city. I really do. And I think the best thing that you could do for this city would be to step down and resign.
Thank you very much, Ms. Babcock. Our next speaker is Ivan Garcia, followed by Tim Prince, followed by Thomas Fleming. Mr. Garcia?
Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Garcia. I'm a resident of San Bernardino. I'm also a volunteer for We Are the Change. I'd like to start by thanking Gigi and Gary for serving our city and for all the hard work that you've served our city and being honest and having integrity and being a straight shooter. I also would like to give kudos to different departments. First off, it would be Sandra Ibarra for always being by my side, following up on requests through the request app. One of them is my alley that is flooding when it rains.
I'm sorry, Mr. Garcia. We'll set your clock, please. Thank you. Please proceed.
So yeah, I'd like to thank Sandra for submitting that request to the Public Works Department. I hope Alex Kishta and the team resolves my issue that I have ongoing at my adjacent to my property, the alley that, it floods when it rains. When it rains, it floods my property. I also would like to give kudos to Michael Huntley for stepping in on my ADU regulations. He supported Oliver and then the Economic Development Department. So thank you on that. And I also would like to thank Public Works again for improving our streets. Baseline, for example, from the 215 East up to, I believe, East Street looks phenomenal. It's very satisfying driving on those roads to know that they're new, there's not a lot of bumps, and hope to see more improvements throughout the city. The other thing I'm here today to say as well is to invite everyone to San Bernardino Food Fest this coming Saturday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. The founder of San Bernardino Food Fest is Luis Ojeda. I'm also here to support him. He's running for Ward number 3. He's a man of real action and is not afraid to get dirty and put the boots on the ground and get in the field. That's the kind of people that we really need in the city council. People that are willing to donate their time, that are willing to make a change for our city, that are willing to pick up illegal dumping. I also want to read the endorsement from Fred Charette. As a senior council member, I believe Luis Ojeda is the right person to represent you as a city hall, as your council member. Luis is a proven leader and will ensure honesty, physical responsibility, accountability at City Hall. I encourage you to elect Luis Ojeda, Councilman, 3rd Ward, Fred Charette. Thank you, Fred. That says a lot about yourself. Tells me that you probably are an honest person, not like the other city council members. I just hope we don't go into bankrupt or we see more change. And I hope we get all new city council members that are up for grabs. And vote for Luis Ojeda, www.voteluisojeda.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tim Prince, followed by Thomas Fleming, followed by Hilda Wentland. Tim Prince, Thomas Fleming. Thank you, sir. Welcome. And Hilda Wentland.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tim Prince. I'm a lifelong resident of San Bernardino and have been practicing law in San Bernardino for 30 years. I was also the son of the 8th city attorney of San Bernardino. So tonight is a bittersweet night for me to see the end of our elected representatives. How many of you, ladies and gentlemen, good people, that voted for the new city charter understood we were going to lose our elected city attorney and city clerk? About 3. At the service club, I made the same announcement out, not one hand went up. So it's a sad day, and I think we see why I opposed this new charter and what's happened to the city since it passed. The years since it passed have been very poor years for this city. We've been unable to recover from our bankruptcy, from our woes. I think especially the last few weeks are amongst the worst I've seen in this city. There's graffiti everywhere. There's trash everywhere. There's homeless everywhere. Why is this? Why is there these terrible allegations against our mayor? Well, we don't have two elected officials representing the people anymore. The city clerk and city attorney have been serving out their time, and they've been doing so dutifully. Gary Sines is a lifelong resident of San Bernardino. He's a UCLA-educated lawyer. He started out practicing law up the street on D Street. Gary Sines is the 10th elected city attorney of San Bernardino. In all those 10, we only had one bad city attorney. The first city attorney was Ralph Swing. Does anybody know Ralph Swing? You know the Swing Auditorium. Ralph Swing wrote our historic charter. He went on to become a state senator. We've had some top quality elected city attorneys. We've also had some top quality elected city clerks. That will be difficult to match with appointed officials. Gigi Hanna has served this community well. She didn't have the pleasure of growing up here, but she's integrated herself and become a trusted part of City Hall and our community. Her loss will be significant. She was inspired by by our former city clerk, Rachel Clark, who was just an incredible public servant. She was kind of the heart of City Hall. When I grew up, she was city clerk. She was assistant to the mayor before she became city clerk. And even in that capacity, she would serve as the person that you could always talk to no matter which side you were on politically or no matter what the mayor was saying that day. When we don't have people to represent the citizens, when they represent the politicians, we're going to miss that accountability.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
going to miss that representation. Mayor, you're an embarrassment.
Thomas Fleming, followed by Hilda Wentland, followed by Christopher Kim, Bill Rainbow. Fleming?
Thank you for this time. First, I want to talk about dogs. A lot of people use the term aggressive dogs, just like, it's an aggressive dog, There is no such thing as an aggressive dog. There's only dogs with a lot of energy, dogs that aren't walked, dogs that are kept on a leash, that are chained to, a fence for their whole life. And then there are dogs with PTSD from people who hit their own dogs. How many people in here have dogs who have hit their own dogs? I have. I've hit my dog. The honesty is lacking in this room because I know probably about 95% in this room, if you do have a dog, you have hit your dog. Honesty. It's not here. Secondly, sexual harassment. You look at the United States right now, right? You look at the men. They're all tied up, tight, everything, everything's all covered. And, what do we expect young women to wear? We expect them to wear high skirts and revealing clothing, okay? So, Mr. Mayor, I understand, sometimes we go out, we drink, we have a good time. Sometimes, because of that, truths come out. And that's why a lot of people don't drink, because the truth comes out. If people would drink, you know what? Men drank, they would come out and say the truth. I'm guessing you drank a little bit too much sometimes, right? Because this is the truth. You look at the cop cars out here, right? They say breast awareness, breast cancer awareness. Why not leg cancer awareness? Why not brain cancer awareness? Why is it breast cancer awareness, right? So it's a very odd, sexist state we live in. I mean, look at the people who were armed in here, right? We're the Roman armed guards, right? 4 people are armed in here to the teeth. And everybody else, we're just humans, just trying to live our lives. And I'm sorry, I'm about to swear, but these police, I mean, come on, what are they doing here with guns? What are they doing? Seriously. They're intimidating the public. And what are you doing, Mr. Mayor? What are you doing? Seriously, where did you come from? Yeah, you grew up here, but you came from the pharmaceutical companies. How many 7-Elevens do we have in San Bernardino? How many people are getting diabetes in the pharmaceutical company you work for, Merck? They have that diabetes drug. How much are you getting paid for all the profit? That's my question.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Hilda Wentland, followed by Christopher Kim and Bill Rainbow.
Good evening. On behalf of We Are the Change San Bernardino, I would like to invite all the citizens to San Bernardino Downtown Square this Saturday. We'll be celebrating Black History Month. Where the change started this back in the summer when it was 109 degrees and we were setting up at 109 degrees. On Christmas Day it rained, but they were there. And so it was a way of a bunch of people saying, how could we promote business downtown? So a bunch of nobodies got together and said, let's promote business. I'm from Redlands. We have downtown Redlands. 5,000 people come in. Let's do the same thing. Well, these people went through permits. They went through the trouble of getting their cards done. If they charge $2 a taco, buy it from them. Support them. They did the right thing. The health department is over there checking their food a half an hour before we come in. Do it between 5 and 10. We have music. We have the jumpers. We have the food. San Bernardino is alive and well. It needs the people to come in. Mr. Moville, thank you for visiting, as you have several times, sir. Thank you, Mr. Charette. You're a staple there. Sandra, you're always there, supporting the vendors. You pretty much buy for everybody and everybody. Mr. Sanchez, when one asked in public, one has to apologize in public. When I asked you to be there because it was your ward, you showed up, and you have showed up ever since. I'm a big person to say, Mr. Sanchez, please show up, and you did. So I want to thank you for that, because you listened. Mr. Mayor, you have been there twice, and the second time you were there 7.5 minutes, from beginning to end. The truth is never offensive, Mr. Mayor. It's inconvenient, but not offensive. You didn't buy a single thing from those vendors either. I was kind of hoping you would. I kind of pointed you to the lady that sold the $5 jewelry. Mr. Mayor, I'm speaking to you now because I love San Bernardino. I have 500 people that I have asked to put their signature on mortgages. And I told you this, every time I sell a house in San Bernardino, somebody signs their mortgage to $300,000. I cannot sell a house in a city that is going bankrupt. I love this city. I really do. I have no business in Redlands. I have my business in San Bernardino, maybe because I speak Spanish. So I'm going to speak to you now in a matter that you understand, since I understand you were a theologian. When the women argue in front of Solomon, in 1 Kings 3:23, it says, the woman said, please don't kill the baby, let her have it. Are you listening? Because this is for you, and I know you tend to turn around. Solomon said, that's the real mother. When you love something, you let it go. Please resign.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Kim, followed by Bill Rainbow, followed by Damon Alexander. Mr.
Mayor,
Kim,
if
welcome.
I could, before the speaker
Yes,
starts,
Ms. Ledoux.
I just want to let folks know that they can tune in, or they could spread the word that it is on Channel 3 and iemediagroup.tv. They can also log on, and it will be on the website tomorrow when
Great.
we fix it.
Thank you, Ms. Ledoux. Mr. Kim, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, everyone. A couple of things I want to say. I want to talk about this closed session. I'm glad you guys are talking about this litigation with all these cannabis companies, or applicants, I should say. I hope you made some progress towards that. Nothing was mentioned. I was hoping that, some report was announced. Anyways, and then I want to talk about number 4. Here we go again. Before anything is fixed, why are we talking about this nibble this company again? And who is recommending this to come up on the agenda every single month? I don't understand this. Please, somebody tell me, who is the staff member that's recommending this? The court document clearly says their lawyer states on their court document says they never had the lease. So one word, their lawyers saying they never had the lease, and they come over here and saying they had the lease. Who's lying? They're saying two things, two different things. So who is right? Are they both right? I don't understand. And why is staff keep on recommending this? It's just like that company, AMPM, with zoning and general requirement and late applicants. if everybody gets a license, by all means, give Nibble this a license. But they need to go in the back of the line. Give the people who follow the rule, let them go first. If and when this thing gets fixed, and anybody who gets their license, do it right. And stop this, whoever the staff is recommending this. Or tell us who that person is, so we can do something about this. Please stop this. I beg you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rainbow.
First of all, I want to recognize Gary and Gigi. Thank you for all of your service. I'm from San Bernardino. I was raised here in San Bernardino. My family has owned businesses here in San Bernardino. And first, the question I was going to ask to you, Mr. Valdivia, is I've come to a lot of these council meetings, and you have all your staff up here right before we started, and it was very obvious to me that there was something going on. After 7:06, we were still not started our meeting, and then nobody can see it and watch it. They couldn't show up today. Pretty fishy. You know, I met you at the SB Fest, the first annual. Shook your hand, saw your family, met your family, saw your daughters. You know, and I just want you to think about this, because I was always taught this. You know, the things that you're doing, we may just say to you and think that you're doing this, but I want you to know God knows, and you have to deal with God. And when you look at your little daughters and what you're doing, those are going to be your daughters when they grow up, and you wouldn't want anybody to do that to your daughters. So as a resident of San Bernardino, I just say, do the right thing as a man and resign.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Damon Alexander, followed by Raquel Origel, followed by John Schollenberger. Damon Alexander, followed by Raquel Origel. Miss Origel, welcome. Followed by John Schollenberger, Majid Siraj, and Christopher, trying to read your writing, sir, Christopher Endelhauer. Sorjo, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. I'm Raquel Orihel, the applicant of Nibble This. I was awarded a license in February of last year. I have come upon council before asking for a move. I'm looking forward to being a business owner here in San Bernardino and paying taxes. You know, I do want to remind everyone here that it's not just 40 new jobs. Excuse me. It's 40 jobs under the union. I did sign a labor peace agreement, so it's 40 new labor jobs plus. You know, I am asking for approval to have an open business and to be allowed to move forward with my awarded license. There is a lot of rumors that I didn't have the right to occupy. That is not correct. I'm happy to sit down with council and whomever it is and show that I've had the right to occupy up until the building burned down. Hallmark no longer exists. It's a burned down building. So, you know, I just want to be a taxpayer of the city and contribute to the community as much as possible. You know, with that being said, I welcome any questions from council or concerns that they may have. We have the owner of the property here to speak for us as well. We have done everything possible to be cooperative and ask for what's needed of us. And I don't know if I can ask for any questions, but if I welcome, okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Damon Alexander, followed by John Schollenberger, Majid Siraj, Christopher Endelhauer, and Danny Manthis.
Good evening, Mayor and Common Council. I would just like to thank Public Works and what they've been doing. They come before the Board of Public Safety, which I am a commissioner of, and I just want to share with you and the public that that Public Works has been doing an excellent job recently as far as getting things taken care of in our city. We have made our wishes known to commissioners as far as different parts of the city, as far as taking care of the streets and other issues, and they've gone far above what they have done to make it work. So I want to thank publicly Public Works and our new our new executive director, and Alex and the rest of them for doing an outstanding job. I'd like to say goodbye to Gigi and Gary. They're both in my neighborhood association, Nina, and they've done a great job over the years, and I just want to say thank you, and that shouldn't have come to fruition the way it did, but thank you anyway. Thank you, Mayor and Common Council, for this time. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Schollenberger, followed by Majid Siraj, followed by Christopher Endelhauer, Danny Mathis, and Robert Porter. Mr. Schollenberger, welcome.
Good evening. I received criticism recently within the community for some of the things that I've said from this podium the last few times I was up here. Let's review some of the things that I've said from this podium. Run the tapes back, it's fine with me. The last time I was here to recognize my councilman, Jim Mulvihill, for doing an exceptional job in our community, for being an active member in our Neighborhood Watch program and being accountable and being there for us to help make our Campo Santo neighborhood in Arrowview a better place to live. The time before that, I was up here to recognize the San Bernardino Police Department, Northern Division, for the help and the support that they're giving us in our community on a shoestring budget. They're doing an exceptional job, Lieutenant Carell and her team. The time before that, I was up here to recognize the Safety Committee for helping us get a four-way stop at D and 28th. We desperately need it for public safety. If that's worthy of criticism, I don't know what to tell you. Jim, I want to say publicly, your behavior on this dais has been exemplary. You've been gavelled out more times. One was enough, okay? But your behavior is exemplary. You never got into any of the picker fests. You just held your own professional point of view, and you voted against recklessness. And go ahead and go back as far as you guys want to go. That's fine with me. And one more thing. The lights are out on E Street from Highland all the way down to Baseline. San Bernardino High School is on that street. That's a safety hazard. The street lights are out. Go see for yourself. They're all out, okay? If something were going on at San Bernardino High School in the evening, that's a safety hazard for those students. So that needs to get fixed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Majid Siraj. Mr. Siraj, welcome.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Public, I want to congratulate Gigi and Hannah as well for their service. I've interacted with Gigi a few times, and same to Mr. Gary Sines. It's wonderful to have a kumbaya moment for once, and this great reconciliation between the council and Gigi and Gary. I dropped off my daughter for volleyball today, and she asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to the council meeting." She said, "Dad, are you a city council member?" I said, "No, but I've been going there for a long time." Then she said, "Are you a member?" I said, "No, that's an exclusive club. I'm not a member. I'm simply a public person speaking." I'm here tonight to speak on item number 4. Chris Kim touched on a lot of things, but I'm conflicted. I said last time to reject Nibble's request to change location. I'm fairly conflicted. Ms. Orgel might be a wonderful person. She's a great philanthropist. But were we held to the same standard? That's the trying question ultimately I'm trying to answer. I wish her to start a wonderful business, hire 40 employees, and hit the ball out of the ballpark. But were we held to the same standard? I think the answer is a resounding no. How is Nibble different than the other applicants? Not much different than people who got licenses who didn't meet zoning requirements. Not much different than people who got licenses that didn't meet general plan requirements. Not much different than people who got licenses that applied late. They're just an aberration, just like everybody else who got a license. But I wish him the best. I sincerely wish him the best. But were they held to the same standard as those who didn't get a license? And the answer to that is a resounding no. It has to do with the answers to these questions. A lot of the people who have the answers are not here. Jeff Bloom is not here. Mark Persico is not here. Andrew Miller is not here to answer these questions. I want to touch on something else that Chris said about the closed session you had, about the meeting that we had with Ms. Carvalho, about an overall solution to cannabis. I hope that was discussed in closed session to really kind of close this out, the litigation against the city, and again, apply the same standard that the applicants who didn't get a license apply the same standard as the people who got licenses. Thank you.
Christopher Endelhauer and Danny Mathis.
Hello. Oh, that was very loud. Hi, my name is Christopher Enhelder. I very recently moved to San Bernardino to attend Cal State University San Bernardino. This is my very first city council meeting. It's turned into quite a doozy. But on a lighter note, I am part of a volunteer student organization called CSUSB Helping Hearts. And one of the things that we were tasked to do is go out into the community and see what the community felt that they needed most. And we spent 4 days surveying all up and down Baseline and East Street and downtown, asking people what do they need in their community. And it was pretty much a resounding, the homeless. There's a huge homeless problem. But what was interesting was it wasn't a, we have a huge homeless problem, let's get rid of them. It was a, how do we help these homeless people? And so what we found out is after we spoke to them, we went and we surveyed and volunteered with homeless outreach centers and church organizations in San Bernardino. And we found that they are in need of employment, housing, and medical services. So we decided that we would attempt to just chip away at this giant problem. And what we've come up with is we have built a mobile charging resource station that we can take into the community to where the homeless people actually are. It is yay high with a resource board on it. But the purpose of it is that we notice that a lot of these homeless people have cell phones. And it's so interesting to know that they have all of this wealth of information and resources right at their fingertips, but why aren't they utilizing that? And so one of the purposes of this is that we're giving them something that they need, a safe place to charge their phone, which we, I'm pretty sure we all agree, homelessness is very heavily stigmatized in this area. So a lot of them get shunned away and aren't necessarily able to stay in one place for very long. So we're giving them something they need, a safe place where they can relax just a little bit, charge their phone, get something that they need. But while that's happening, right in front of their faces, there's a resource board with actual vetted, real resources that they're able to utilize on their phones, phone numbers, websites, everything that they need to get help is right there in front of them while they're hopefully kind of a captive audience, right? Because you're just waiting for your phone to charge. What we're here to do is if any of you have any kind of resources or insight into how we can expand this program, maybe build more resource centers, get more volunteers involved, that would be phenomenal and we'd be eternally grateful. Thank you so much for your time.
If you could please leave your contact information with our city clerk. So
I
we
put a
can...
card at each of your tables.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, all right. Thank you.
That's not my card. Nope, that's someone else.
Okay. If we can get your contact information, we would like to follow up with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Danny Mathis, followed by Treasurer Teese.
Good evening. I'm Danny Mathis. I represent 63 Holdings, which owns the property at 390 North 8th Street regarding item 4. And I'm just here tonight to show my support to Rachel and Jason. They're fine people. I've met with them. I've heard their plans for their business. They sound very ethical and responsible, and I'm sure they'll do a great job in operating a successful business in the city of San Bernardino. There's maybe some people that don't like it because it's cannabis related, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not a big fan of cannabis either, but I'm not a big fan of casinos, and we seem to have a very successful one in San Bernardino, so why not? It's bringing jobs, and it's going to employ people, and I think it'll be, I think they'll do a great job. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Treasurer Teese.
Mayor and Council, so if you really appreciated Gigi and Gary, you probably shouldn't have retaliated against them for the last year cutting their pay. That might have shown a little more appreciation than a plaque because you cost the taxpayers over $600,000 for your bogus $52,000 saving. But remember how the mayor met with Gigi and told her to quit because he'd make her the new city manager, or how he retaliated against Gary for admonishing him for bringing an employee to after-hours events? No? Nobody remembers that? Do you remember how you fired the city manager for her coming to you and telling you that John Valdivia was causing a hostile work environment with Bill Asaley? And what you did, you put her on leave and then you fired her when Juan got elected? You got a plaque for that? How about for these two ladies, Karen and Myrna, who've been sexually harassed, and all the receipts are out there. The public has the records, and yet what? We have to wait 45 days for you to do what? To figure it out, to cost the taxpayers more money, to be bigger puppets to the mayor than you have been for the last year? When do you start thinking for yourselves? When do you start representing the city of San Bernardino? When do you protect the employees who work so hard to cover your mistakes? Why is it that you are so easily swayed and bought and sold by a nobody mayor who is scared to death of my words? That's why he has to push my name to the back. That's the guy that you guys listen to? That's the guy that you do things for? Why? Do you love San Bernardino? Do you want us to be better? Do you have any idea what an amazing city you have been chosen to represent? And yet you fail us. You may not be responsible for the past, but damn it, you own the present, and you will live this legacy in your future. And when they Google your names, you will be just like John. Front page, sexual harasser in San Bernardino. San Bernardino Council retaliates. San Bernardino mayor calls former CM corrupt. That's what you guys want to attach your names to? Doing the right thing doesn't require an elected official job. It doesn't require you to make a lot of money. It doesn't even require you to get out of bed. You just got to make a phone call and say, you know what, guys, we watched it happen right in front of us. The employees begged for our help and nothing happened. We did it to the city manager's office. We've done it to other employees. That's all you have to do is stand up and be people, individuals. What is happening cannot happen anymore. Karen and Myrna lost their jobs because they couldn't take the mayor's sexual harassment. If that was your family member, what would you be doing? Sitting there, supporting him, or doing the right thing? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. Our next speaker is Robert Porter. Mr. Porter, welcome, followed by Jose Reyes and Moses Medell. Mr. Porter.
Mayor, council, good people. I'd first like to say that please do not vote for 7th Ward Councilman, Mr. Mulvihill over here. There's a saying that my father used to say, worthless as boobs on a bowl. We've got nothing done in our area. There's constant potholes on Valencia. The sign that they put for speeding never works. He always takes credit for things he's never done, or he just shows up and takes pictures for. He comes out and does things to campaign, but when the campaign's over, he doesn't show up anymore. So I've dealt with him a long time. I admit I've been his rival, but please do not vote for this guy. We don't need him in there anymore. We need new blood. Sandra, thank you so much for coming down and speaking from the podium like that as a constituent. I really believe in you. You're a good woman. I know it took a lot of courage to do that, and I appreciate you. And whatever the city attorney says, you keep doing that. That was really cool. Mr. Figueroa, thank you so much. You're a good man. He's played chess against me. He's showed up to things I've asked him to do. He's a real good dude, and I do appreciate him, and I don't think he should go down with the sinking ship. But Mr. Valdivia, please, you made us look very bad in the newspapers. You made me look very bad for supporting you, a paid supporter of you. I can't take that. I can't feel that way. I love San Bernardino more than I love you. But the way you made us look, it hurt me. The way you're doing the people in the city are scared of you, man. I was bullied as a kid. We don't need a bully in there. We need one to check their ego. Now, maybe alcohol messed you up a little bit. Well, get some help with that. Stop drinking alcohol. Yeah, I know you're not going to resign, even though a lot of people would like you to, and I personally think you should do what's best for San Bernardino and do that. But if you could keep moving the city forward in a good way while you're still there, but I don't think it's going to happen with another election, man. That wasn't cool what you did. And these girls, they don't deserve sexual harassment now. They don't want to be dragged through the mud like that. They're Republicans, man. Like, you helped pick them. How could it be political, man? I'm just super disappointed in you, dude. I shouldn't have to come up and talk to stuff like this. I should be fighting for San Bernardino's history. I should be talking about our Arrowhead. But instead, I have to come up and scold Mulvihill and you. And that's just bullpucky. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Our next speaker is Jose Reyes, followed by Moses Medell and Christina Williams.
Okay, first I want to wish happy Valentine's Year to all the women everywhere. It's going to the 29th of February this year. I'm at 909-382-1837. And here's a reminder of what our calendar is all about, to empower the freedom of religion. For the year 2020 CE, Calabra Egyptos, we celebrate the calendar for the collaboration of Egypt with Rome after the wedding and consummation with child of Cleopatra to Julius Caesar in the temple of Hemidoger, above the two great pyramids, polished to perfection by the Octaviuses, who focused on the 8 corners of the rooms as they built Rome into a marble luster city, and at the time had a 10-month calendar. When Brutus was assassinated, Brutus assassinated Julius with many daggers, making Clea sole ruler. Then she was bit by Mark Antion's snake and fell into a coma. So Caesar Augustus and the others, Octavius, tore down all the calendars in an attempt to stop time and prevent her death, casting everyone into the year 0. So the strongest of Octaviuses took the name Nero as he focused on the smaller details of perfection, as he cared for Cleo. So they began to work on the round Colosseum in the years of 0. And Augustus went on to destroy Antion in the volcano, and then had Brutus tied to the mast, and clubbed to death for defecting to the sodomites that followed the teachings of the perverted King Divot, who dreamed about another great warrior while he committed adultery with his wife, and so grew in contempt to all women, as well as the 2 great pyramids. So then on the completion of the Colosseum, Augustus created our current calendar by adding 2 months, July for Julius and August for himself, moving October to the 10th month. Then was inaugurated Caesar Emperor on the first of the year 1 with Vindicia and their many consorts to the Nero and then Nero was inaugurated next, though Rome was attacked again by the Sodomites with a sideshow freak Caligula, who tried to blame Nero with the misconception of God that tried to misrepresent history by calling one man guilty for another man's crimes. But Nero was only singing to everyone to remain calm and put out the apocalyptic fires, the apocalyptic fires, for they knew God as the common force within us all to advance our cities and people. So now in the year 2020, let me share in a better vision of the future with a new conical pyramid in Vegas popping up next to the Luxor and will be known as the Lustar.
Thank you, sir.
And here you go.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Moses Medell. Mr. Medell, welcome, followed by Christina Williams and Blanca Lopez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council and everybody in the council here in the chamber. My name is Moses Medell, and I've been gardening or being part of the San Bernardino County, San Bernardino City Community Garden for over 23 years. And I don't do this just as a hobby here, but I do it as research here, and also because San Bernardino has, basically, there's a lot of food deserts out in the city here. So what I try to do is advocate to to actually feed or help feed the hungry in some of the soup kitchens, like the Frazee House in your district, sir, and also in Mr. Sanchez's district. And so what I'm here for is to advocate for, lately, there's a change of management in the Parks and Recs, in the lower part staffers, and they're revoking the grandfather clause. And by doing that, that means I'm gonna have to relinquish some of my gardens that I've been basically growing all this food and everything else for all these years, but I've been putting money, lots of money, my own money and everything else into that to basically, because I do organics and everything else, so putting all this money into there to produce enough produce, and I'm talking thousands of pounds of produce and fruit, so I could supply some of the food houses around the neighborhood. But my understanding is that a grandfather clause can only be revoked by change of ownership, not management. And that's what I'm here for, because even in some of the rules that we have here that establish, it actually outlines, because one of the rules says overhead watering systems not exceed 6 inches for grandfathered gardeners. So it basically states that we were grandfathered in. So they're revoking something that was already instilled. And even in 2010, we actually had a rule coming out there basically saying that from now on, we're going to have only 1 plot per person. So that still established that there was a grandfather clause prior to that, because I was still allowed, and other gardeners were still allowed to continue growing in the gardens. So that's what I'm here fighting for, is to advocate that I continue to be allowed to grow stuff for the community and stuff, because I love this community and everything else. I even graduated from the school out, Cal State, in order I could further advocate for other, basically for the needy and around the neighborhood and everything else. So that's what I'm here for, is to try to see, at least for the city attorney to at least look into it about the grandfather clause, to at least clarify it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medell. We'll have staff follow up with you, sir, and we appreciate your service to the community with the vegetables and whatnot, and we appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Christina Williams, followed by Blanca Lopez, followed by Scott Olson, and our final one is Gregory Taylor. Christina Williams? Oh, yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and fellow citizens. My name is Christina Williams, and on behalf of my team titled Help Us, Help You, whose members are myself, Zarifa Shalebi, Monica Contreras, Stevie Carlos, and Beatrice Martinez, we are representing Cal State University of San Bernardino School of Social Work. This winter quarter, our team was tasked with the assignment from our professor, Dr. Deirdre Landeskog, in our social welfare policy course to implement a community advocacy project. Our responsibilities required us to pick a community of interest, which is the Muscoy area near Muscoy Elementary School, assess the needs of the community by surveying a sample of volunteer participants, and utilize the data collected to pinpoint a major need that we can assist with. Based on our results, we would like to briefly share the information with you. The Muscoy area concluded that the most pressing needs of their community are 30% of the population consider that there's a safety issue. 13% of the people said that there were a need for sidewalks so that their children can be safe from being hit by cars. 8% of people would like to have more street lights. 6% of people would like the roads to be fixed, and 5% of people would like to see more children's programs. Although these are the main needs of the community, we can only fix one of these needs or try to assist with one of these needs. But we need your help. Our intentions are to collaborate with anyone willing to support our endeavors to assist with one of these needs. We are currently organizing public figures at our local school and the local organizations near the Muscoy area and in the Muscoy area to help us develop our event. Comprehensive, feasible ideas and support are more than welcomed. If you have any questions or concerns, I left my contact information with Ms. Gigi, who has already passed them out to you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for allowing me to have the opportunity to speak here today. and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Ms. Williams, and all the students who assessed and conducted the survey. I want to encourage you to contact the county. Muscoy is a unincorporated portion of the county of San Bernardino, so I encourage you to reach out to your county supervisor of the 5th District to also express your concerns and share with them those results. Thank you. Ms. Lopez, welcome.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Blanca López. Soy padre de familia y vengo a que me ayuden a que quiten un dispensario de droga.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Blanca Lopez, and I am a resident of San Bernardino. I am here to ask that you remove a marijuana dispensary.
El dispensario está cerca de dos elementarias que es Roosevelt y Henry.
The dispensary is near two elementaries that are Roosevelt and Henry.
Está en la Matt Vernon y 16, medio bloque de la 16 sobre la Matt Vernon.
It's at Mount Vernon and 16, mid-block of Mount Vernon and 16.
Pido por favor que hagan algo al respecto, ya que esos niños son el futuro de San Bernardino.
I am asking that you please do something because those children are the future of San Bernardino.
Por favor, el 14 de enero fui a la junta.
Please, on January 14, I attended a meeting.
Hablé con el señor Oliver Mujica.
And spoke with Oliver Mujica.
Él dijo que iba a hablar con la persona de la policía.
He said that he was going to speak with the person from the police department.
Que ellos se encargaban de eso.
That they were the ones that were in charge of that.
Nada más me pidieron mi número de teléfono.
They just asked for my phone number.
Y que me iban a dar información que se iba a trabajar en eso.
And stated that they were going to give me information that they were going to work on that.
Hoy es febrero 19 del 2020 y hasta ahorita no he recibido ninguna notificación de que se está trabajando al respecto.
Today is January 19 of 2020, and to this date, I have not received any information that they are working on this.
Por favor, pido que se trabaje al respecto, porque es el futuro de San Bernardino.
I ask that you please work on this concern because it is the future of San Bernardino.
Me gusta que escuchen a la comunidad, pero también me gustaría que den respuesta al respecto, ya sean mis preocupaciones de la seguridad de que está cerca de las elementarias.
I like that you listen to the community, but I would also like to have feedback to show that you're listening regarding the concerns that are shared about the community and the elementaries in the community.
Pero también se necesitan respuestas y acción, por favor.
But we also need an answer and action.
Please. También pido que se ayude para las sobre la Matt Vernon, en la escuela Henry. Pasan los carros más de 35 de velocidad, casi van de 40 a 45. Pido por favor que se pongan unas luces ya que es muy peligroso para que los niños crucen hacia la escuela Henry elementaria.
I also ask that you put some lights because it is unsafe. The speed limit is 35, but they likely go at 45. And it is very dangerous for the students to cross when they're attending Henry.
Muchas gracias y espero una respuesta al respecto. Gracias.
Thank you very much, and I hope to receive a response. Thank you.
Yes, can you please have her leave her information? Can you please have her leave her information with the staff, with her phone number? Contact information, please.
Thank you. We got it. We appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Our next speaker is Scott Olson, followed by Gregory Taylor. Mr. Olson, welcome.
Yes, hello. My name is Scott Olson. I am a lifetime resident of San Bernardino. I'm also somebody who's been involved in political campaigns quite a bit. And guess what? We have a campaign coming up in March. Now, as for Mayor Valdivia and his issues with his staff, I will remain neutral in that I will await the city's investigation and I will wait for the information to come out because I still live in the United States of America despite a huge push for socialism. You are innocent until proven guilty. Unless, of course, you're on the wrong political side in San Bernardino, then you're guilty before they even tell you what you're guilty of. 2013 was a horrible year for this city with the recall. Right before absentee ballots dropped, the dirt hits. Same thing in 2020 from the same group. 2-3 days before absentee ballots hit, The dirt's out there. Now, the worst part is we have two ladies who really honestly deserve their time for what went on. And what disturbs me in the paper is it says that these ladies complained to city employees for an extended time frame, and city employees ignored them. It was being ignored by city employees that led to these ladies feeling they had to do what they did. And amazingly, right before election time, what happens? The group that won the last election and beat the same group that was a part of the recall are all of a sudden being accused of, geez, you worked with the mayor. You cooperated with him. How dare you? We have to slander your credibility. We have to attack you. And I'm speaking of two people in particular, Juan Figueroa and Bessin. They are lifetime members of this community who have given selflessly of this community all along, and guilt by association and personal attacks is all the opposition has left. It should not go unnoticed that the candidate running against Juan, again, was endorsed by misled Fred. Yeah, it's the same political games being played, but this time staff was involved at the expense of these ladies' things. Staff, if they withheld this information and did nothing, are just as guilty as the mayor. You want to accuse council members? You have 7 council members. Why only 3 of them? Now, I'm not supporting Henry, but on this one, they work. They have jobs. They're not hanging around the mayor's office watching everything. Okay? Yet they're being attacked. Bessin, I support her. And I'm going to say, if you want to know why, read Hardy Brown Sr.'s editorial in the Black Voice, a wonderful piece that spelled it out for both Juan and Bessin wonderfully. Now, as usual, get rid of Mulvihill. He's worthless. You got 2 great choices, Mylanarski and Damon Alexander. I support Mylanarski. Get rid of Mulvihill.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Our next speaker is Gregory Taylor. Mr. Taylor, welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and all the residents of San Bernardino. I'm here once again. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say this. I did appreciate our meeting last week. It was informative, but like I told you, I'm a person of action. Basine, you did give me a call that last Friday evening, and like I told you, I'm a person of action. I have your phone number. I sent you messages. Mr. Mayor, I have your phone number. I sent you messages. I did get some answers, but I didn't get all the answers I wanted. I told you last city council meeting that I will support you when I see actions, but I will butt head with you when I don't see anything. Miss Ibarra, I have a question for you. My daughter goes to Hardy Brown Elementary School. I need to know what we're going to do about the homeless in that area. I don't think my daughter needs to go to school every morning, see the homeless laid out along the sidewalk. All the kids that go in there see the homeless along the sidewalk. I see we have a nice police presence here tonight. I wish they'd be in my neighborhood, maybe helping clean up some of the homelessness and the trash along the way. You guys do a pretty good job. I will give you that. My dad was a police officer. He did it for 30 years. And you work hard at it. I seen him work overtime. I seen him come home tired. I wish some of you guys would come to my neighborhood and see what's going on in my neighborhood and get it done. Once again, Mr. Barr, I respect you because I know you get things done. You come to this podium and speak your mind. And I respect you for that. City council members, get to work, because I will come after you. I will call you to the carpet, Mr. Mayor, and you know I will. I will support you, like I said, but if I don't see action, I will come for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Moving on to our staff reports, item number 4 is a request to amend commercial cannabis business permits to provide a change in location from the address of 4130 West Hallmark Parkway to the new address of 390 North H Street. Ms. City Manager?
Mike Huntley and Stephanie Sanchez are here to give this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight we bring you a location change request for one of our awarded commercial cannabis businesses, Nibble This. They are requesting a change in location from 4130 West Hallmark Parkway to their new potential location at 390 North H Street. The request comes from the need to secure a new location due to the fact that the original location and building have been severely burned and cannot support a tenant. The applicant submitted an application requesting the location change, along with all the required documentation outlined within the ordinance. Upon submittal, staff reviewed the application for completeness and determined that all the requirements had been met. The new location satisfies the requirements within the ordinance, and staff is supportive of the request. At this time, staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve this location change. The applicant is here to speak on behalf of her application, should you have questions. The H Street property owner has already spoken in support of the location change, and the police chief is also here should you have any questions. Thank you.
Very good. We'll open it up to council members.
Yes. I'd like to set the groundwork for this. So if I may get a description of how the process that is in place for the location change. What process does the city have to follow in order to either accept or deny this change to the application?
Sure. So the process would be the applicant would submit the application. Staff reviews it, make sure that they give all the requirements needed. We make sure that the location meets all of the requirements, distancing away from any sensitive uses, which they met those requirements. Made sure that the application was complete in order to bring it to council for review and approval.
So my understanding is that the city council, if I could get some, I don't know, maybe. My understanding is that the council approved a resolution to direct staff to create the criteria by which this council would judge an application, and that judge of the council as a judge of application would judge an amendment to the license the same as a new applicant applying for a cannabis license in the city. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I see here the resolution. It's Resolution 2018-102, and it makes reference here that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to prepare the necessary forms, application process, solicit applications, conduct initial evaluations, application, ultimately provide the recommendation to the council, to the city council. So those recommendations are manifested in a document here, application procedure guidelines for a commercial cannabis business. And I see then also a list here, which the council would consider as to whether to accept or deny an amendment to that application. So description of evaluation criteria.
Mr. Sanchez, just a moment, please. We're going to ask the community, if you have some comments, please take it outside of the lobby. We'd appreciate your cooperation. We're trying to conduct some business here. We're asking community members, please, if you have some comments, you're welcome to step outside in the lobby area and discuss and exchange phone numbers or what have you. Thank you very much.
Did you guys notice I was a little distracted?
Please proceed, Mr. Sanchez.
All right. So I see here the criteria: location, neighborhood compatibility plan, environmental impact mitigation, local enterprise, business plan, enhanced product safety, safety plan, security plan, community benefits. And who would be the judge? Would the council be the judge of that criteria to either accept or deny?
That criteria was reviewed during the review process of the application before it came to you last February. So that information has already been reviewed and critiqued.
That goes right back to what I was saying. that the council, when in order to accept or deny an amendment to that application, would go through the same process as an applicant who was applying to the city for a license for the first time. So this procedure would apply again for any sort of amendment. So if we had cannabis applicantee A applying, this would apply. Now we have applicant B who was awarded a license wanting an amendment to that license would then have to go through this same process. So my concern here is that using this system to make a judgment on to whether to accept or deny that amendment, I don't think it's compatible with our neighborhood compatibility plan as well as our community benefits plan. I do believe that the staff has a right to make a recommendation based off of this, but the council at the end is the ultimate judge as to whether they meet the standard for us to either accept or deny. And I'd like to make a motion to deny that change in location.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor, and we'll open it up for discussion on the motion made by, substitute motion by Councilmember Sanchez with the second by Sandra Ibarra. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilman Nickel.
Yeah, I would like, I don't have a copy of the ordinance in front of me. The ordinance is referenced, I'm looking at packet page 13. Under discussion, it says, therefore, Nibble this has, as a permit holder has submitted an application in order to amend the location pursuant to the process and fees set forth in section 5.10.090. Can staff read that section so I have a clear understanding of the process and what we need to be considering in terms of our decision?
Councilman Nickel, you're referring to section 5.10.090. So with
As
that,
required by 5.10.200 section G.
Yeah, G. So in looking at this, we actually have, and I can read it verbatim for you, that there's a number of sections.
200.
That's G.
Right, that's what he's looking at.
Yeah, correct. So if we go to the subsequent section, in 5.10.200, this is change in ownership or location. If you look at item number G, which specifically deals with the change in location, the code specifically says the location specified in the commercial cannabis business permit may not change without an amendment to the permit, processed in the same manner as the initial permit pursuant to the process and fees set forth in section 5.10.090. So if we're processing an amendment, we have to go back through and evaluate the site based on the same criteria we did based on their initial application that came into the city.
Okay, and that has been done?
Yes,
right?
it has.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Huntley, the item before us is receiving staff recommendation for the transition and move to the H Street location. In short, can you help the council understand what the process is? And I understand and I appreciate council members providing that check and balance to in our deliberations tonight. But the applicant has qualified according to the zoning map and according to the development code. There's been significant efforts on the part of the applicant to make those accommodations and has passed the tests and rigors of the application process. Is that accurate?
You are correct.
And so what determines now the future and fate of, let's say this is for some reason not approved tonight by council members, what happens to the 4130 West Hallmark Parkway application? I mean, let's say they don't get approved tonight to 8th Street. What then of the 4130 Hallmark, and what happens to that license and us, the city council granting that license?
Well, I know that currently that Hallmark address is the site where the building burnt down. So really, at this point, there's no facility for them to occupy.
Okay.
And really, my understanding too is that the property owner no longer wants to engage the applicant either at this point. So really, the question, I might refer back to legal counsel, but, you know, what happens to the existing license that was issued for that process, right? And
My concern is the appetite for business economics is very simple. That if we were to realize and materialize these business applications and treat them solely as a significant revenue generator to a bottom line, that we need to see this as a business, whether it's a floral shop or a shoe shop. Our city is desperately hurting for revenue. And so does this applicant then just go down a black hole and it no longer exists, this application that was granted to the 4130 West Hallmark location? What happens to that license? Does it just go in the abyss?
No, I think this application is exclusive to amending to this
Sanchez.
location.
Mr. Sanchez.
I'm answering your question.
No, I'm asking staff, sir, so if you don't mind. Mr. Huntley, what happens to the 4130 West Hallmark Parkway? My question remains, what happens if this is denied tonight?
we would assume that potentially that license still exists on that property. There are specific provisions within the cannabis ordinance that would stipulate at some point if there's no activity that, I have to go back and read it verbatim from the code, but basically at some point if there's no activity, that have to give up their license at some future time, years down the line.
Mr. Nickel?
When did the property burn? When did the property burn?
At 4130.
At 4130. When did the fire take place? We have our fire chief here. Do we have any way of determining when that property burned?
It was in the later part of last year.
The later part of 2019?
Correct.
After the application had been approved?
Yes.
Okay. So subsequent to, okay. Now I'm looking at packet page 14, and I'm looking at, states here, Nibble This stated that it was not able to secure the original property located at 4130 West Hallmark Parkway, San Bernardino, California, as the property owner, Washington LLC, was also an applicant for a commercial cannabis business, CCB. I assume that's what CCB stands for. Because a CCB permit was not received, I assume by Washington LLC?
Correct.
Okay. The property owner sued, initiating litigation against the city, and the litigation is ongoing. Staff is recommending approval of the amendment to allow the change in location since the applicant cannot force the property owner to make the location available. So what we have here, it sounds to me, is really an impossibility on the part of the applicant, that the original property owner has denied them. It has nothing to do with a fire. I mean, that's subsequent to what actually occurred. It sounds to me like there was an agreement. Whether or not that agreement is valid, what liability is there with this property owner that has clearly violated an agreement that existed? Why is the city on the hook for this violation of an agreement as opposed to Washington LLC? Why aren't they taking this up against Washington LLC instead of us?
I understand that there may be private civil litigation between the parties. I don't know any details, but my understanding is there might be. We simply processed the application based on the ordinance, which allowed us to an applicant under our ordinance can come in for a ton of reasons or no reasons. They have the right to come before the council under the ordinance and say, I'd like to change my location.
It sounds to me like this is a dispute between the applicant and a property owner.
But even if there is a dispute under our ordinance,
They're allowed to apply.
They're allowed to come to the
They're
city
allowed
council.
to apply. It's a question of whether or not we step in. And my concern is, what do we do in the case where other potential applicants get into disputes with property owners? Then is the city now just willy-nilly going to just start reconsidering applications and moving locations and reconsidering new
Well, I think
locations?
Councilmember you
I
are
think we need to
suggesting
get,
what
pin this
willy-nilly.
down.
Right, but I think the protection against what you might refer to as willy-nilly is section 510.090, which required staff not to arbitrarily review. It actually required the applicant to submit a brand-new application to go through the same zoning verification and to look at this as if they had gone through an original. So.
Well, my
it is-
question is, did they even have a valid agreement to begin with? Because I
But the
think that's the.
agreement's irrelevant to the findings
I think
of
it's
this
completely
application.
relevant, because I think you have to weigh whether or not the original application that was scored based on a location was a valid application, if in fact the property was not in fact secured, which is what I'm gathering from the description that staff has
Right.
provided here.
I just want to caution the council. What you are doing right now is creating a record. You're creating evidence in the record,
Exactly.
right? And so you're making some assumptions. We don't have all the answers.
Well, we
And
would
so-
hope to have answers when something is brought for us for consideration.
If I may. So I think the very fair questions that the council member Henry Nickel is bringing up is relevant, but not dispositive. What is important here is that if the council is going to deny this amendment, that it be based off of the criteria that the council adopted through resolution when directing the city manager to create a criteria. Simply by looking at that criteria, I think the council here is not satisfied with that amendment. If I can please refer everyone to the screen over there, that is the location. We have directly south of there a potentially enormous business development in what is right now the Carousel Mall. Just north of there on Eyesight, we have the upcoming Fifth Street Gateway project. We are not denying them their ability to make an amendment to their license. We are denying them the ability to move to this particular location. If tomorrow they submit an application for another place in the city that satisfies these requirements, that the council decides that they satisfy these requirements, they can move. But right now, they are not satisfying this council using this criteria to move to this particular location. The council, again, can approve tomorrow this licensee moving to another location. But I am asking right now that the council deny this particular location. So I make that motion. I have a second. I call for the question.
I've got a question.
Mr. Mulvihill, please
Yes.
proceed.
Now, I noticed that virtually across the street is the Telecu housing in San Bernardino. Is that not residentially zoned?
No, it's not.
It's not residentially zoned. Okay. I mean, that's one of the issues that we've changed in the meantime. Now, explain to me, I'm not quite clear. If they were making an amendment, don't they have to go back and go through the whole process again? Isn't that what the standards say?
That's what they have done. They did come in, they submitted an application to us. The application's been vetted by staff, and then subsequent to that, it's in front of the council for consideration.
Mm-hmm. Did they repay the fees and so forth?
Correct.
Mr. Huntley, what are the associated costs, ballpark, with I know there's a suggestion by a council member here, well, they can just go apply. If we deny tonight, they can keep on applying and reapplying, but it is a process. And what's that process cost, a ballpark?
I'll let Stephanie answer that question. Stephanie?
In this particular case, it has cost the applicant almost $4,000 to reapply for the amendment to change the location.
$4,000 in additional costs.
Correct.
I have a question, if I may. Okay, so my understanding from what I'm gathering, the building burned in the late part of 2019, correct? Okay, and there has been comments that there's rumors out there. However, I have documentation which I provided to staff. When they originally did the paperwork, it said LA Church as their landlord at 4130 Hallmark. Second page is Exhibit B, last paragraph. Cross complainants, in this case it's Nibble This, returned the keys for the property to cross defendants, which is LA Church, at their Pacific Palisades address on July 12, 2018. So how do you explain them giving up their keys to that location in 2018 before we granted them their permit on February 2019?
Mayor, if I may address that, I was provided this document. I'm actually not sure what it is because it says Exhibit B. It has a law firm name on the side. I don't know if it's a cross complaint. I don't know if it's a demur. I don't know if it's an answer. I don't know what it is. It says a second amended cross complaint. So if someone understands what that cross complaint is, they're allegations in a lawsuit. So what I think Councilmember is referring to is cross complainants return the keys. That's an allegation. I don't have a dispositive answer to that. I'm just being honest that this is part of the record, so I don't know what that is. I would like to say that I think our Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez was likely on the right track in terms of trying to identify and to stick to the findings in this case based on issues over which you do have some discretion. And I just want to be careful because this is, I don't know what this is.
Where did this come from?
This was provided to us by Councilmember Ibarra.
Talk on my microphone, but this was actually provided to city staff a couple months ago as well. So I don't know why this was not included in the packet as fact findings. And it was. If anybody wants to know what it says, on the bottom section of the document, it says LA Church versus Origel et al., case number, and it's on the bottom right of the document. I didn't want to print out 24 pages of a document if
But
nobody's reading
Councilmember,
it.
may I just want to warn you, there are lawsuits in the state of California, thousands of them. Lawsuits are based on allegations that are put in complaints. That means one party makes an allegation and the other party responds. So you cannot submit an allegation for the purpose of trying to prove that it's accurate, true, or a piece of evidence.
So city staff didn't follow up and find out what that case came out to be.
It's not job staff to go chase down allegations set forth in cross complaints. We're processing the relocation just as we would a conditional use permit application. We take in the evidence and the facts and we review it. And that's what was done here. It's up to the council's discretion. If they cannot make the findings, that is up to you to make that determination. But I don't like the insinuation that staff was somehow negligent. I think they did a thorough job in evaluating the application and making a recommendation.
Councilman Nichol.
Yeah, I think what I'm struggling with here is we need to have equity. We need to have equity with our applicants. We need to have equity with those that are granted licenses. And I'm seeing some real holes in the ordinance. I think we've got a relatively good ordinance, but I think there are some aspects of it that need some clarity. I'm also concerned that we only have, 2 of the licenses that have been granted of the 16 are more or less doing business. I mean, that's unacceptable. We're a year in. What's going on? What are we going to do with those licenses that have been granted that clearly are not going to move forward? Why aren't we, instead of piecemealing these issues we're dealing with on the litigation front, dealing with them in the context of getting this ordinance right? I just don't understand why we're just, and I hate to use that word willy-nilly, but it is sort of.
I know, but I have to insist
if I
that
may
you understand.
finish, if I may
I don't understand how you can get an ordinance right that was adopted by the voters. You don't have the authority to change.
If I may finish, then, okay, well, then do we have the authority to just arbitrarily change the conditions that are in the ordinance? In other words, there should have been a bona fide location, a bona fide application based on a location that was the basis of a score that allowed a license to be permitted or to be issued. And that's the concern I have. There's clearly an appearance that there's inconsistency in terms of how we are evaluating certain applicants that may or may not have actually had a bona fide location to begin with. That's a concern I have.
Let's go back and check each one of those, all 17.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't want to be engaging in decisions in the context of pressure through litigation. I want to be making decisions on shoring up and ensuring we have a good ordinance. And if it's clear that we have deficiencies in the ordinance, in our conversation needs to be, how are we going to shore up the ordinance? How are we going to address those licenses that have been issued that are clearly not going to move forward? My understanding is we have, about 5 that are just not going to move forward. So what, they just stagnate? They just sit there? I mean, to me, that's inequitable. Why shouldn't we be opening those licenses up to other applicants, and including Nibble This? What I'm saying is, look, you applied, we issued a license for a location. Clearly, that location is no longer valid. Do we just now open that up and assume that the location was valid to begin with when we had other applicants that were denied because they didn't comply with the requirements under the ordinance? So I'm getting very concerned that the minute we make a decision on this, it does set a precedent that can open us up to potential new litigation, because now we've created a precedent that isn't encoded in our ordinance. And I think that there's some things that maybe we need to address in the context of our ordinance instead of the context of simply dealing with litigants and dealing with applications because for whatever reason the location wasn't valid.
I know, but I understand, and I absolutely defer to the city council on policy issues. It is your policy to make. But when it comes to actually interpreting the law and following the rules that either the council has given us or that the community has given us, the community adopted this ordinance, right? I mean, it was a voter-approved ordinance, but the council adopted a resolution that told the staff what they had to accept. The council, so what they had to, I just want the council to understand this. When people submitted their application, they were not required to come forth with a lease. What they were required to do was to submit evidence that the property owner was consenting to their application. That's what our staff did. So we can second guess whether that was a good choice when you adopted the resolution, but just for staff, all that staff has done is followed the rules that you gave them.
What is the language the ordinance uses specific in terms of what the requirements are to demonstrate whether or not an individual has or applicant has property?
That was not, the language was not contained in the ordinance. Remember, the ordinance says, set forth in a resolution adopted by the council
what's
with
the
respect to the
resolution?
regulations. So if you could
Sure.
refer to the regulations, please.
So this refers to Chapter 5.10.240, right to occupy and to use property. It says, as a condition precedent to the city's issuance of a commercial cannabis business permit pursuant to this chapter, any person intending to open and to operate a commercial cannabis business shall provide sufficient evidence, which sufficiency shall be determined in a reasonable discretion of the mayor and the city council. I can go on and read the rest of it.
And the mayor and city council.
Correct. So as part of the process, to make it clear, instead of just waiting for applicants to submit all kinds of documentation to us, which we may question, city staff actually did prepare a property owner's authorization form, which is consistent across the board. So this is a document that gets submitted with each and every application, so it's consistent in regards to what it says and the authorization for each applicant.
Okay, I think the question I'm grappling with here is whether or not the applicant had a legitimate right to a property that was the basis of approving their application. Did they or did they not? And from what I'm reading in the staff report, it doesn't appear they
Well, according to the standards that you set by adopting the resolution, because we didn't set those standards, the city council adopted the resolution, according to your standards as just read by our community development director, we have to answer yes. If you had set a different standard, which is make sure there's proof of a lease or a purchase and sale agreement or an escrow document.
So I could, as an
something-
applicant, just say, look, I've got access to a piece of property, have no lease agreement, have
No.
no right, and I, as an applicant, by just simply stating that, can get approved for a license.
Can you explain again what they were required to submit?
So what the ordinance says is they need to provide sufficient evidence.
And what was that sufficient evidence?
It's left up to the discretion of the
No,
mayor.
what was it? What was it in this case?
Well, it's the property owner.
So the property owner represented to the staff that they had legal access or authorization to move forward at that property. The property owner did. So whatever happened between the property owner and them, we satisfied our legal requirement. We can't dig deep after the fact and figure out what happened. But the property owner gave our staff a representation, as I understand, and Stephanie, you may be able to speak to that more clearly than I can.
Each applicant was required to submit with their application a property owner authorization form. That form is designed to let staff know that the property owner of that said location is okay with that applicant applying for that location for a cannabis business permit. So that's what staff required as part of that application for all applicants. Every application that we received has a signed property owner authorization for the location they were applying for. That was sufficient evidence for us.
Point of clarification.
On this application, but I will say that I have spoken to staff. There are clearly ways that we can improve our process. We wouldn't be here today with the numerous lawsuits we have and whatnot if we had a perfect process. So I think some cities have learned through trial and error that they are requiring signed leases or copies of purchase and sale agreements. And that's the things that we can do to improve in the next round. But the issue that you have before you today is really not, and particularly under the Brown Act, we have to focus in on the item before you. The item before the City Council under item number 4 is, in evaluating this request for a location change, has this applicant complied with all the rules and regulations as they exist today, not as we might want them to exist in 2 months or a year from now. But that's your job to evaluate and to determine whether you can make those findings or not.
Ms. City Attorney, I have a question. The ordinance you refer to, that's the one that we approved after we gave the permits in February 2019, correct?
That's before.
Because I know there was some updates to the ordinances that we were making.
No, it was one that my understanding was approved by the voters of the city of San Bernardino.
Mr. Mulvihill?
Yeah, I want to get back to another issue, again, about procedures. What is the zone of that Telecu senior housing project? I mean, I can't remember exactly what the capacity of it is, but it seems there's at least 100+ senior households living in there. What's the zone?
I don't have the zoning map in front of me. I apologize. We could.
That just seems like a travesty. I mean, to say that that's not a residential, that's not residentially zoned. I mean, that just seems like, from my point of view, again, obviously from what you've said, that it's not residentially zoned, but in fact, there's at least 100 senior households living there. And from my point of view, I just think that we need to look at, this broad brush saying that it's got to be zoned residential, and now the senior housing development is not zoned residential. That, again, is another issue that we need to, a hole we need to fill.
If you like, I can speak to that, Councilman. That particular area fell into either an industrial or commercial zone. And previously, we brought an amendment to council. In the original ordinance, it was said that a residentially zoned or residentially used parcel would disqualify a location. Council gave us direction to amend that, and we came back and amended it so that it would be residentially zoned parcels would be disqualified for that location. So in this case, it falls under an approved zone that would not disqualify the location. So it falls into either an industrial or commercial zone, which doesn't disqualify the location.
I understand that, but I think most council people were thinking about the fact that there's one residential house located in like on Highland Avenue, you've got a residential house surrounded by commercial. But in this case, we've got, I was going to say dozens, but 100+ senior households living there, and it's not classified as residential. I think it's a travesty.
Okay, final, Councilman Charette.
Very simple question, just to make sure I haven't missed something. This is one of the original 16 that was approved, and all they're doing is asking for a a location change.
Correct.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'm willing to consider this tonight, but I have some real concerns about our ordinance. I have some real concerns about the state of the current process. We should have many more businesses operating right now, and they are not operating. And we need to get that fixed. Because I'll be honest, we heard about illegal dispensaries. The reason why I approved of this ordinance was to give us the resources to address the concerns that were expressed by that constituent. And we aren't doing that. It's not happening. And my position is, if we've got people that aren't going to move forward, we need to find a way to release those licenses and allow them to be utilized in the city and provide the revenue that we need to address this challenge that we're confronting. How long would it take to get a revision of the ordinance back to us for consideration? Because I see this as one of many, and we have a whole litany of litigation cases that we were looking at this evening. We got to get this fixed, folks. And we can't just continue to deal with this in the courts. We got to deal with this in the context of an ordinance that works.
So just, I want to make sure we're precise. The city council does not have legal authority to amend the ordinance.
At all.
At all. Well, in 3 areas, there's three areas where you can do it, but at all. You do not have that authority. If you wanted to amend it, we could prepare some amendments and you could propose those amendments to the voters.
Okay. Now, how do we settle cases if we can't amend the ordinance?
Because if you wanted to settle some cases, you could then use the authority in the areas where you have it. And there's
Such
three
as?
areas. 3 areas in the ordinance that you retain some coverage. You do have the ability to change the regulations, and that is something that we've been working with staff to make sure that they come back, because the regulations are the processes. And we can improve, and I think we should improve those processes. And so that is something that you have a little more freedom over. But the ordinance itself
When you
was
say
voted-
processes, does that...
what the application looks like, the findings that you have to make.
Now, what if an applicant comes to us and says, we are not going to move forward with the license that we were granted? What is the process to address that situation?
I believe that in terms of deadlines, we may be able to address that in terms of the regulations, and that's the one we've already given
Okay,
thought
and
to.
that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Because we need to have a way to unlock these licenses that are tied up right now and are preventing us from moving forward. We got a mess here. This is ugly. We shouldn't be dealing with this as a council. My hope was we had an ordinance that would allow staff to deal with this. We only have 2 out of 16 applicants operating.
One more question.
So if we can, how long can we, so we aren't updating the ordinance, so I assume you can bring back an update to the process rather quickly. It doesn't have to go to first and second reading, we just update the process,
You have
right?
to update it and then adopt it in the form of a resolution.
Okay, how soon can that get back to us? If we can get that back to us soon, because we have these litigation cases, I want to get these things resolved, and I think we can do that through a revision of this process. How quick can we get a process? If I can get some assurance that we're going to get something back to us to get this thing moving, then I have no problem approving this.
Just so that you know, again, I want to stay focused on item number 4, because that's what we're here to do. But remember, you have, of your 16 that were awarded, 2 that are operating, you have 3 that are actually under construction, and you have 6 that are in the plan check. So I wouldn't be so hard on yourselves. And communities that have done this, and I've assisted a number of communities in this area, it's not unusual to take up to a year or more to get everyone up and running. It just isn't unusual. If you went out and did a survey, they're coming faster, but you had an unusual ordinance.
I will
so-
vote no tonight unless I can get an assurance that we're going to revise our process in a timely.
You have 2 that are open, 3 that are under construction, and 6 that are in plan check. 11 of 16.
So 5 are pretty much dead in the water.
They have not submitted for plan check yet, 5 of them.
Okay. How soon can we get a
Nibble,
resolution?
this is one of them.
How soon can we get a resolution?
I'd have to look to staff. I'm the city attorney. I don't assign staff, so.
Sonia, you said, just a real quick question, you said Nibble This is one of the ones that has not
Has not
performed
submitted for plan check because obviously
because
they
of all
can't
of
submit
this.
because they don't have a location. And so I don't know what the reason are for the other 4.
Councilmember, we'll try for the second meeting in April.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'll
So, Councilman Mulvihill,
Yeah. Now, as you remember, at the Telecou site, they have open space there with benches. It's a park. And this is within 600 feet of that. So I'm going to deny this tonight. I think actually the whole project is a residential area, should be zoned residential, but obviously there was a failure at some point that it was not zoned, and I think that there should be some exceptions to that. But I think that we do have open space there that's available for the residents to utilize, and so I'm going to be voting against this tonight.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to deny with a second by Councilmember Ibarra. We've had plenty of discussion tonight from council members and
Original motion, I believe.
expressed. No,
Original
It was
motion.
the original motion
Just to
to
make
deny
clear.
it.
I'm sorry, what was it?
The original motion was to deny this.
It's the floor motion to approve it. So.
The motion has not been made to approve it. There was a motion to deny it.
Okay, so a motion to deny with Councilmember Ibarra. Is there any other discussion? I know that there's been a lot of cross chatter here, and we appreciate the council members. We have some reassurances on the process and protocols and regulations being updated by April. Is there a substitute motion on any of this to approve this matter?
Well, I'll go ahead and make a substitute motion that we approve contingent upon and once resolution updating the process is received. Yes, we have to get this fixed, and I'm not going to keep kicking the can down the road. We've known we've had challenges. We need to get this fixed. Yeah, we'll go ahead and approve it once we get that resolution back. I just.
And then why approve it now?
That's like conditioning a conditional use permit on changing an
Well,
ordinance. You guys are sitting as a quasi-adjudicative body right now.
Can I get assurance that we're going to get something back? Okay. And then the other thing that we also need to do, we need to tighten up the requirements, the lease requirements, making sure that we have bona fide leases, that there's entitlement to the sites. I don't want to ever deal with this again. This is a mess.
All right, is there a second to
And I think that,
Councilman?
again, I'd like to add to that, any kind of an apartment area is a residential area,
All right, is there a second to Councilman Nichol?
multifamily dwelling.
Is there All right. And if members would cast their votes on Councilman Nichol, Councilman Nichol, and call for the questions. To approve this tonight, the reassurances have been made by staff.
Okay, you'll see this on your vote screen. This particular one has to do with the substitute motion.
I will be voting no to make the amendment for him, to allow them to move.
Okay, Ms. City Clerk, let's clarify the motion made by Councilman Nichol. But the
Okay,
second
I'm just going to
That it
go
was
ahead and
to-
make the motion. I've received sufficient assurance from our staff that we're going to get what we need. So I will move to approve the application.
Councilor
floor
Richard, does that still?
And it was seconded by Ms. Richard.
Okay. Members would please cast their votes on that matter, please.
How much did he take? How much money did he take? 2,000?
On item 4, the motion to approve was made by Mr. Nichol, the second by Ms. Richard, and the item passes 4-3.
Thank you. Item number 5 is to receive and file the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year 28-19. Recommendation is that we receive and file this report, but before then, Ms. City Manager.
Mayor, our Finance Director, Paul Espinoza, is going to give this presentation as well as the next one on the mid-year. This is a really important presentation. I hope you'll pay attention to it. This is the first CAFR that the city has is presenting to you since 2011, so this is kind of a milestone for us. So he's got some good news. And then after that, he's going to present the mid-year budget.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you this evening is our comprehensive annual financial report. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sam Singare. He's a CPA and our accounting manager. He's been with the city for about 6 months, and this evening he'll be presenting our comprehensive annual financial report. Sam?
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight I am pleased to present the comprehensive annual financial report and the audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019. Just first, by way of background and introduction, the State Controller's Office requires that the city undergo an annual audit of all its funds and accounts by an independent third-party accounting firm. The objective of that audit is to ensure or to enable the auditors to express an opinion as to whether or not the city's financial records are free of material misstatement and if the city's financial position is fairly stated as of a given year-end date, which again is June 30, 2019 in this case. Those audits are due to the State Controller's Office by March 31st of the year following year-end. This is one of the requirements that after the bankruptcy, the city had fallen behind on getting the audits completed, getting the audits filed on time. But starting with the 2015-2016 audit, the city got back on track, was completed and filed timely with State Controller's Office, and we have filed those reports timely in each subsequent year. The fiscal year 2019 audit was actually completed on January 28th of 2020, and that marks the earliest completion and the earliest filing since fiscal year 2011. Congratulations. Thank you. A few other items to highlight from the fiscal year 19 audit. The first is, as City Manager mentioned, this is the first comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR, that the city has filed since fiscal year 2012. That's in contrast to the annual financial reports that the city had been filing for the past 5 years. As you can see from the slide, the CAFR just provides some additional information, additional disclosures to better assist the users and the readers of the financial statements to understand some of the information in the statements. It's a project that the city has been working on for the past number of years, but with the right level of staffing in the finance department, something we were able to accomplish in 2019. The second item I would like to highlight is that the city received an unmodified or a clean opinion from the auditors in 2019. For those of you that may have been here for the past maybe 3 or 4 audit presentations, you'll recall that there's been a number of audit findings, a number of items that required the auditors to modify their opinion in certain areas. And so that's been another project in the finance department over the past 4 to 5 years to systematically address those. And the last item was finally addressed in fiscal year 19 to get that clean audit opinion. So we're going to look a little bit more in depth at both of those items in the next few slides. So first, comparing the annual financial report to a CAFR, or comprehensive annual financial report. As you can see, the primary components in terms of the statements, the notes to the statements, the supplementary information is the same across both types of reports. However, the CAFR does contain some additional disclosures in the form of a transmittal letter from city management, management's discussion and analysis, which provides an overview of the statements and some financial highlights for the year, as well as a statistical section that goes over some important historical trends, as well as information on revenues, debt, as well as economic and demographic information as well. So all those areas just serve to provide some increased transparency, increased information to the readers and the users of the statements to make things more readable, hopefully more understandable, even though it is in accounting language, but hopefully able to be more easily understood there. Also would like to point out that there's nothing wrong or bad with filing an annual financial report as the city has done for the past 5 years. Annual financial reports meet all the governmental reporting requirements, all the state controller requirements. There are cities throughout the state that only file annual financial reports. It's just that the CAFR is seen sort of as the standard for the industry. It's what the city was producing annually prior to the bankruptcy, and certainly the standard that we like to get back to now that the city has exited bankruptcy. Again, touching on the auditor's report as an unmodified or a clean opinion, that it indicates that the auditors were able to perform all their necessary test work to verify all the balances in the city's funds. It didn't find any areas of misstatement or any areas of concern. Again, there were a number of areas dating back to fiscal year 2012. It has been since fiscal year 2011 that the city had an unmodified audit opinion. So the last area to clean up for fiscal year 19 was related to some notes receivable and allowance balances in various funds. So that required a lot of work, a very collaborative process among staff in the finance department as well as housing and community development. So would like to commend staff for their hard work on this project. It was a very painstaking, time-consuming, tedious project. It certainly was nice to see that come to fruition and to get this addressed for fiscal year 19. Moving on to the financial statement review portion, just a brief overview of the financial statements. They're composed of three primary components. First, you have your government-wide financial statements, you have fund financial statements, and then finally notes to the financial statements. The notes to the financial statements are probably the largest part of the CAFR, contain a lot of detailed information about the city's accounting policies, as well as detailed information and disclosures on the actual amounts reported in the fund and the government-wide financial statements. So in the interest of time, we're going to be looking at just those first two items, the government-wide statements and the fund statements. So first, the government-wide financial statements, which are similar to a private business enterprise in that they're going to encapsulate a long-term and a comprehensive view, meaning they're going to include all the assets and all liabilities of the city, including long-term assets and long-term liabilities. In the city's case, that's going to include things like infrastructure, buildings, equipment on the asset side, and then liabilities certainly going to include your CalPERS pension, claims payable for workers' compensation, general liability, things like that. The activity is going to be further divided into two broad categories. The first is your governmental activities. So that's going to include activities that are and services that are provided to the public, generally supported by tax revenues. And then you also have business type activities, which are generally supported by charges for services. For the purposes of the city CAFR, those business type activities are going to be made up predominantly of the water department. And so that's going to include the water department activity in the form of their water, sewer collection, and sewer treatment funds. Looking at the changes in net position for 2019, you can see the governmental activities fund balance or net position decreased by about $21.7 million. That is a larger decrease than in the prior year. In 2018, that decrease was about $17 million. The difference is increased costs related to public safety and some street-related expenditures. That's offset slightly by an increase in net position of $12.7 million in the business type activities for a net decrease of $8.9 million for the total government. Did want to note that of that $8.9 million decrease, it does include a one-time loss of $8.4 million that incurred in the business type activities for the liquidation of a fiduciary fund. While we're on the government-wide section with the long-term liabilities, want to take a look at the net pension liability as of 6/30/19. As you could see, the total of the city's miscellaneous and safety plans was just over $415 million at 6/30/19. Both those plan balances actually decreased by a total of about $7.7 million from the prior year. The primary driver of that was due to the net investment income that was earned on the investments held at CalPERS during the year, and so that reduced the actuarially determined net pension liability at June 30/19. Also to note, the city's required employer contributions for the year. So the city portion for both the safety and miscellaneous plans totaled just over $28 million. And then the water portion, they share a part of the miscellaneous plan, so that was an additional $5.25 million. Moving on to the fund statement portion, which is what most people generally think of when you're talking about governmental accounting or governmental reporting. The fund statements are going to differ from the government-wide statements in that they're going to be much more narrower in scope. You're going to have a more short-term focus, and you're looking at your inflows and outflows of resources throughout the year. You're going to think of it more as the items that you're budgeting for each year, revenues and expenditures-wise, and then any accumulated fund balance from any surpluses or deficits. So the fund statements are going to be further categorized by fund type. So you have governmental funds, which is going to include the general fund, your federal and state grants fund, and then all the other governmental funds are going to be totaled in a single column on the fund statements. And then back in the notes, you're going to have a combining schedule that details out each individual fund that makes up that aggregated balance. Next is proprietary funds, which is going to include the business type activities, which again are going to be predominantly the water department activity. And then finally, fiduciary funds, which would be the successor agency. So looking just at the governmental funds and then more specifically the general fund later, you can see the total governmental funds balance increased by about $747,000 from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19. There is that large decrease of about $7.5 million in the general fund. If you recall from the mid-year update that was brought in April of 2019, there was an accumulated deficit in the gas tax fund, and the Mayor and City Council approved a transfer of expenditures out of the gas tax fund and into the general fund. The total of those transfers was just about right at $7.5 million. So excluding that, very unique sort of one-time situation, the general fund would have been in a deficit position of approximately $50,000. Next, looking at the general fund balance at June 30, 2019, you can see the total balance is about $64.5 million. Of that amount, just over half, $32.8 million, is classified as non-spendable. What that means is that it's not in these, this fund balance is not in spendable form, meaning it's not expected to be converted to cash. In the case of the general fund, this relates to the property held for resale portfolio and the value of the land at 6/30/19. There's also $73,000 that is reserved for debt service, $68,000 committed for the animal shelter, and then that final amount, the unassigned amount of $31.5 million, is the amount that is then subject to the city's reserve policies and any other, be able to employ it for any other means as well. So looking at the projected reserve or the target reserve balance versus the actual balance at 6/30/19, you can see based on the adopted budget what the emergency reserve and the economic reserve balances are targeted at in that first column versus the actual balances at 6/30/19. The 6/30/19 balance does also include carryovers for items that were previously budgeted and programmed and approved, but that were not completed in fiscal year 19, so that funding, previously approved funding, was just moved to the current year to complete those projects. This slide is also going to be on the upcoming mid-year budget presentation, so don't want to duplicate efforts too much, but did want to introduce it just to show those actual balances at 6/30. And there's no formal action or anything requested, just a receive and file, but we will be open for any questions that you may have.
Sam, I want to just say thank you very much for all of your professional help in this presentation. Paul, we appreciate all of your staff here joining you, and our finance team is a very important, critical part here as City Hall, and we appreciate all of the hard work. This is a moment to celebrate, which the city can really stop for a moment and say, this is a great day for us to file on time and be one amongst many. Are there any other comments from council members? It's a receive and file. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 6, mid-year financial review.
Just before Paul gets started, I do want to point out that we reposted this item with just a couple minor changes yesterday. On packet page 389, we struck some language that was not accurate. And then again on pages 393 and 394, there's some strike-through language that you'll see. So I just wanted to make sure that you and the public are aware that we did switch out the language. And Dixon.
The mayor pro tem's gone, and the mayor is gone, and the mayor said he's going to take a quick break, and he touched me on the shoulder, I guess assuming that I'm the senior council member, so I'm in charge. So continue, please. Thank you.
Good evening, council member in charge and city council. Before this evening is the mid-year financial report for the fiscal year 1920. On June 19th of 2019, the city council adopted the fiscal year 1920 budget. The mid-year analysis is an opportunity to make budgetary adjustments due to either current year's actual financial needs or to adjust the budget for items not factored in the process of the budget for the 1920. Fund balance. At the end of the year-end review on December 4th of 2019, staff reported a projected 18-19 ending fund balance in the amount of $29 million. At this time, despite additions to the current year budget, staff is projecting to end the 1920 with an estimated ending spendable fund balance of approximately $29.2 million, showing a modest growth in that area. General fund revenues and expenditures. During the year, the operating budget was amended by the mayor and city council, which has increased both the budget and revenue expenditures for the current year. This chart illustrates the changes in the city's revenue and expenditure budgets. The 1920 budget was adopted with a modest surplus to the general fund of approximately $56,000. Through amendments, the current year, our shortfall through the amended budget amounted to about $22.6 million. And throughout the end of the year, we are projecting to come in just above $100,000 for the current year in the form of a surplus. The general fund ending position. The increases to the expenditure budget were greater than those to the revenue budget, but this was due primarily to the carryovers for the fiscal year 18-19 that were again approved by the City Council at the December 5th City Council meeting. These carryover items reflects project services and purchases that were approved in the fiscal year 18-19, but were not completed or fully paid by the end of the fiscal year, June 2019, thereby necessitating the authorization to carry over and expend funding into the current fiscal year. If looking at the current year's adopted budget compared to the current year's projected revenue and expenditures, again, the city is projected to end the year with a slight surplus of just over $100,000. General fund revenues. This chart illustrates the changes in the overall general fund revenues from the budget adoption through the end of the current fiscal year. As you can see in the chart, our adopted budget reflected overall general fund revenues of about $126.8 million. Our amended budget reflected $129.9 million, and our mid-year projected revenues are estimated to end the year at just around $132 million. General fund revenues by major categories. The following charts illustrate the changes in the general fund expectation by major category group. As you can see, our revenues expectation is coming in slightly better than we had previously anticipated, with stronger results coming from sales and use tax. Our sales tax consultants have reviewed their earlier projections to reflect a healthy growth rate through the end of the fiscal year. This despite the change or the closing of the Sears Anchor store in the Inland Center Mall. So despite that, our sales taxes are still trending up higher than we had anticipated. And again, these are our other general fund revenues by major categories, and they're coming in about where we had anticipated when we had adopted the budget. General fund expenditures. If looking at the current year's amended budget compared to the current year's projected projected expenditures, the city is coming in slightly above our amended projections by $112,000. However, if the recommended mid-year adjustments are approved, the general fund expenditures budget will need to be increased by $1.7 million. The mid-year budget adjustments recommendations are as follows. Police Department. We're looking at transferring code enforcement to the Community and Economic Development Department. If council will recall, this was planned at the adoption of the 1920 budget. Transfer of part-time salaries from the downtown and city hall programs to personnel and training, and transfer of small tools and equipment to part-time salaries, and this is in line with our AB 109 grant program. It's helpful to note that the requested amendments do not require an increase to the general fund budget. City Attorney. Salaries and benefit increases of $87,000 are due to the reinstatement of the elected city attorney. Unanticipated outside litigation expenses are projected to come in at approximately $1.4 million in the current fiscal year. City Clerk. As with the city attorney, projected overage of $57,000 is due to the reinstatement of salary and benefits to the elected city clerk, and unanticipated additional costs for ordinance posting and the special election costs will amount to about $115,000, again, in the current fiscal year. Human Resources. Staff is requesting an additional appropriation to pay for legal expenses related to the court order for the elected city attorney and elected city clerk's compensation. That amount is earmarked to be around $81,000. It's helpful to note that the amount is needed for the court-ordered payment of the city clerk and city attorney's outside legal counsel. Again, this is part of the court order. Transfer of $50,000 from salary and savings to outside legal service for investigations and employment law-related issues. And the transfer of the recruitment function from the city manager's office to the Human Resources Departments. Community and Economic Development. Here we're looking at the transfer of code enforcement from the police department, and various transfers within the housing division include $106,000 for emergency solutions grants, $10,000 of home admin budget for salary savings to outside legal services, and $170,000 from NSP1 fund balance to operational costs for salaries and professional and contractual services. City Manager's Office, as noted earlier, the change there is we're looking at the transfer of recruitment to the Human Resources Department.
I'd also like to note, we've had some vacancies in our office. As Rebecca was promoted, her position was left vacant, and we had an analyst leave mid-year. And that savings has been used, as you know, to fund your strategic planning and for extra security. And we're looking also at funding the recruiter for the city manager. So there's no change in our department, but I want you to know that we have held those vacant positions in order to fund those other items.
Library. Library is looking at amending their budget for a $12,323 California State Library Association's grant for e-sources materials and $11,000 for market space grant. These revenues, these grants will increase our estimated revenues, and we'll be programming those expenditures, thus showing no impact to our budget. Bankruptcy-related expenditures are estimated to end the year about $1.5 million in the current fiscal year. That compared to the $4.2 million in 18-19 and the $6.2 million in 17-18. Our bankruptcy-related expenditures are trending down, and we expect these to go down even further. General fund reserves by category. As reflected in this table, the total combined reserves at June 30 of 2020 are anticipated to come in at $29.27 million. However, it is important to note that these funds are restricted into categories approved by the Mayor and City Council through the City Reserve Policy that was approved in November of 2018. The emergency reserve is estimated to remain unchanged through the end of the fiscal year. The Economic Contingency Reserve reflects planned expenditures included in the Mayor and City Council's approved carryovers from the fiscal year 18-19 that were approved at the December 5th, 2019 City Council meeting. Again, these carryover items reflect projects, services, and purchases that were approved in 18-19, but were not completed or fully paid by the end of that fiscal year, thereby necessitating the authorization to carry over and expend the funding in the current fiscal year. Other non-general funds and non-CIP funds. Just a quick look at this. It looks like our non-general funds and non-CIP funds are coming in around with a variance of about $535,000 compared to the $26 million amount that was estimated at the creation of the budget. Overall, it looks like these are trending about where we would hope they'd be trending. The variance isn't that great, and that's kind of good news. It's where we thought we'd be landing the ship. With that, I'd like to introduce Dixon Mutadzakupa. There you go. It's the first time I've gotten that name right. Dixon is our city budget officer, as you know, and he will be walking you through the tenure model. Dixon?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to give you an update on our 10-year financial model. To some extent, the plan is looking a little bit better than when we presented to you last July. If we're looking at fiscal year 2021, we had initially projected ending the year with a deficit of about $4.5 million. Our projection, we have revised our projection now to $3.2 million. So that's an improvement of about $1.3 million. But as you can see, that deficit is going to increase in fiscal year 21-22 to $7.7 million, and we're expecting it to grow to about $21 million in fiscal year 27-28. We have also revised our ending fund balance for fiscal year 2021. When we presented this to you last June, we had projected ending the year with about $21 million. At this point, we have revised that ending fund balance by $5 million to $26 million. But as you can see, when we reach fiscal year 23-24, we start seeing a lot of red. Now, looking at some of, before going further, I just want to say that a lot of the improvements that you're seeing in this plan, they're mostly based on the improved revenue situation where we're seeing, as Paul has mentioned, our sales tax and Measure Z numbers coming in just a little bit better. And as we create our 10-year plan, we assume certain assumptions. These are some of the assumptions we have assumed. The first one is Measure Z. We know that Measure Z is sunsetting in 2022. For the sake of this plan, we're assuming that it's not going to be renewed. When we do a forecast, we have to base it on things that we know actually going to happen. We're also assuming that our sales tax is going to continue increasing. Our utility users tax, we expect that to remain flat. We're expecting a modest increase in our property tax in lieu of VLF. On the expenditure side, we're relatively projecting those expenditures to remain flat, with the exception of our PERS unfunded. The PERS unfunded, it's being projected to increase by about $5.2 million in fiscal year 2021, and it will increase by $18.3 million by the end of 27-28. In closing, I know this plan is painting somewhat of a dire picture. It is important to note, though, that a financial forecast is really meant to be a guide in the warning that if we don't take corrective measures, this is where we might end up. We are looking at a few items that we could consider to help improve our revenue situation. We're working on a fee study right now that we should be bringing before the council in the next 2 months. We are working on a potential revenue measure, and the fire annexation reopener talks are currently underway. And we'll take any questions.
Well, I want to commend the fee study. That I'm waiting to see that happen. I remember years ago, we often championed the fee study, but it's never really gotten any traction. So I appreciate the staff really working hard on that. That's an accomplishment in and of itself. I want to make sure that when the fee study, that cost recovery in hours and staff time, a model very much promulgated by the county. County department have various types of fees associated with revenues. And so I want to ensure that that's also part of that, but we'll trust staff when you ultimately make that presentation. But the fee study and the fee revenue generation would be a great, great tool for us. All right, we'll open up for council members' comments, or Councilman Nichol.
So maybe a city manager can, what is sort of the timeline for our Measure Z discussions? Obviously, the public needs to understand we're going to need to address that sunset and what options we need to be considering. What's sort of the timeline for the public to know where we're at with that and plugging this hole that we see in the budget?
Happy to address that. As you know, we've retained a consultant who's been helping us with this. They did the initial study that came back that we presented to the committee and the group when we did our strategic planning session. We've come back now with another questionnaire that's out there, and we'll be having the results of those. And we plan to come back in May, I believe, to the council. Go ahead, Rebecca.
So we'll be completing another tracking survey at the end of May. An update should be coming back before the council in the first week in July for your consideration. And of course, there's the council subcommittee that will be receiving information throughout this process, and I have a couple of meetings set up for that.
Just to let you know, by the mid-August, I believe it's August 8th, it has to be that's your deadline to put it on the ballot for the November election.
When we get that recommendation back in May, can we look at this model in the context of what staff is proposing in terms of a potential renewal of the measure? I'd like to, because the public is looking at this right now. I got a lot of comments on this. People see this as dire.
Well, I'd like to point something out to you. We would never get to this point because we'd have to make cuts. You can't operate at a deficit. But Dixon does have numbers, I believe, regarding if we were to renew at the quarter cent and keep that, or if we were to go to 1 cent.
Well, I think it might be appropriate once we have the tracking. I don't want to get ahead of the ball here. I think it's appropriate to bring that back when we have good information. But I think this graph that Dixon is developed for us, this chart, I think we need to see that again when you come back in May, and then punch in maybe another row or two there and see how those numbers then begin to align with the proposal. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question here.
Councilman.
Now, we're planning on the renewal of Measure Z on this November ballot?
we're not planning on, we're doing an education component right now. We have a consultant that's been working on this that you've approved. We've been working on this for several months now. So we'll be bringing something back to you in the latter part of this fiscal year, and for you to make the decision of whether you want to put it on the ballot based on the survey.
Well, looking at, obviously the numbers warrant, if the quarter-cent sales tax increase, the quarter-cent that Measure Z covers right now is $9 million. And so if we were to pop it up to double it, it would be $18 million, presumably if everything remains constant and so forth. So, okay, thank you.
Councilman Charette.
Yeah, we've come in higher than anticipated, and do we expect that trend to continue in terms of the revenues?
Right now, I'm taking one bite at the elephant at a time. We're going to be beginning our next year's budget cycle in the next few weeks. Dixon and I have gotten this for your consideration. After we're done with this, we're going to build upon this and start looking at our next year's budget. My hope is that our sales tax trends will continue, and I'm hoping that our revenue trends will continue. But much of our expenditures, that's going to be really up to our staff. Our city manager has directed us to come back with a no-growth budget. However, we're a service organization, and as a service organization, one of our biggest costs have to do with salaries, and hence our PERS outstanding amount and the rates continue to go.
And the PERS rate is continually going up.
Yes, sir.
So, and we're anticipating that.
Yes, sir.
And a big number that we're looking at is in terms of change, Thomas, is in the city attorney's office, and that's for, it's unanticipated legal fees, $1.4 million. And I guess the simple question is, where's that $1.4 million going? I mean, I've got some ideas. We've all got some ideas based on some things that are going on. But do we really know where it's going? We talked about the $87,000 for Gary's salary and the $57,000 and the $81,000 in legal fees, right? That I don't think was mentioned. But yes, it was. I'm sorry, it was. That totals $225,000. Is that part of the $1.4 million?
It is not. Let me explain that $87,000. That was in the human resources budget. That's money that is coming out of a liability fund as a result of the court order, which requires the payment of the elected city attorney and elected city clerks attorney's fees in that case. So that is not an attorney's spending by the city. The way the presentation read, it kind of sounded like, and I completely understand how you got that impression. It sounded like it was a payment for attorney's fees, and it is, but it's for their attorney's fees. It's not the city paying its own attorneys to engage in legal affairs on the city's behalf.
Okay.
To answer your question about the $1.4 million, one of the unfortunate parts of our role as attorneys is that litigation is inherently unpredictable. As you know, throughout the course of this fiscal year, we've brought to council in closed session a number of lawsuits that have been filed against the city. The city council and mayor have made diligent efforts to resolve those lawsuits and have encouraged settlement in various cases. Unfortunately, the cases just haven't settled, and some of those big ones have remained. In addition, just the nature of running a city of this size and this complexity, you are getting new lawsuits all the time. And so when we look at the lawsuits you faced over the last 6 months and the lawsuits that have been recently received, we believe that's an area where we're going to spend money. One thing that's really important here is to put the expenditures for the city attorney office, the request for this $1.4 million for outside legal expenditures, in context of the total legal spend of the city. I think in the staff report we highlighted, and I know several council members have asked me about this, is what is that trend line for legal services for the city as a whole? And as included in the staff report, I believe it's page 393 of the package, you'll see that legal spend for the city has been trending downwards, and particularly downwards since the changeover from the in-house city attorney's office to the contracted out council office. Even with this $1.4 million proposed amendment, this could be the first year that the city has spent less than $5 million on legal expenses in at least 7 years. In addition to that, one thing to keep in mind is incredibly difficult to predict or put a number on is the savings in future years as a result of not paying the PERS costs of employees that you don't have. That's a cost you'll never really know, but it's significant. And you've seen tonight in the projections on the PERS costs for employees moving forwards, it's a significant number, and not having employees in the city attorney's office, or at least only having 2 employees in the city attorney's office, assists with that.
Right. Well, and that's true. I have to respectfully disagree that cities our size have some of the lawsuits that we're facing and that we deal with. They're not typical. There's been, it appears, a good 5 this year that I wouldn't call typical at all. And that's what we're anticipating, some of that, but not settlements, of course. That's to fight these lawsuits, but doesn't even begin to talk about possible settlements or the costs that might be incurred. Not to mention vendors that have been fired or let go that we paid and didn't get something out of it, i.e. Westbound Communications and a consultant that we paid to help us get through and never finish the job. And of course, lobbyists that we hired that are, we paid $35,000 and got absolutely nothing for. And so I have to respectfully disagree that a city our size, these are typical lawsuits. Yeah, sure, we have a lot, and every time we step out the door, we're risking a potential lawsuit. We know that. But it also has a lot to do with the way we operate and what we do and how we do things. So I think it's important to know that. And I commented that the $29 million is a nice number for a reserve account, but these are numbers that are going to be probably ultimately coming out of that reserve account. And with the PERS costs going up, you know, this is good. The trend, we're showing increase. But the public's going to be asking, if we've got reserves, then why do we need more taxes or what have you? So I think it's just critical that we give the honest picture, and I'm not suggesting that we're lying by using the word honest. I'm just suggesting that budgeting in a city is very difficult, and you all do a marvelous job at trying to keep the costs low, but some behaviors haven't allowed for that in this case. So I'm concerned. It is a good day that we're balanced and we're showing some upward trends. But, you know, I want to know what we're going to do when we get out to, I won't be around, but you know, it's just 4 years from now, and we're upside down $17 million. So I know we're working in that direction, but going way out, those next few years, 36, 56, 76, 98 million upside down. I don't really look at that as a rosy picture.
Oh, we're not trying to paint one,
Well,
I assure you.
Forgive me, because that's my term, rosy. I know that there was some indication that the numbers were going to look better, and we felt better about it, and we should, and we do. But we've still got to be continually conscious of what's going on and what we're facing, and things that unanticipated. So those are my comments. I appreciate all that you're doing, and I guess we'll give you $1.4 million for unanticipated
Thank you, Mr. Charette.
legal fees.
Councilmember Barra.
I have several questions. The first one on page 406 on the presentation that we had. By the way, I want to let you guys know, beautiful presentation. We've been long awaiting to see the finances of our city with the mid-year. My question on page 406 of the packet, we adopted 126 million as far as revenue and expenditures, and since amended, the expenditures have gone up drastically from 126 million to 132 million. That's about a $6 million difference from what was adopted. Projected is almost 132 million still, and that's 5 million. My first question is, where are these expenditures coming from? It's quite a bit for the fiscal year.
If you recall, we've had some expenditure trends going up, namely, well, at the end of the fiscal year, June of 19, we had unexpended expenditures for carryovers and appropriations.
But don't forget, the funding gets carried over with those carryovers.
That is
Yeah.
correct. So that's part of our increase in the amended, but for the most part, the lion's share of our revenues are coming in greater than anticipated. As we mentioned earlier, our sales taxes are coming not significantly, but greater than we had anticipated, which is good news. Our expenditures, we've been trying to keep a lid on those, but for the most part, they are coming in below our amended budget, and that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay, so that was that one. The next question I had, and I do appreciate how you broke it down from departments also. I want to let you know. So just so my colleagues know, there is negative in the city attorney's office, negative in the city clerk's office, negative in human resources, and I think community and economic development. We are using $170,000 on NSP1 funds for salaries, benefits, and professional contractual services. Is this allowed for HUD?
Yes, Councilmember, they are. That's why we're going ahead and recommending those. As I understand it, we go ahead and present our HUD recommendations after our budget's adopted. After HUD gives us that approval, we amend our budget accordingly. This is a normal practice for almost every city.
Okay, thank you. I also was concerned when I started seeing the 10-year financial model, especially at the 2023 mark and on. We're looking at drastic negativity from 17 million to 19 million, 20 million, and 22 million following that. Is that the CalPERS pensions?
Yes.
Okay.
In our 10-year projection, what we've done is we've kept our expenditures relatively flat, with the exception of CalPERS. Even though we're not looking at any COLAs within those 10 years, just in the plan, our CalPERS numbers are going up every year, and we have gotten our 10 years looked at by CalPERS specifically for this.
And don't forget, this assumes that Measure Z goes away, so that's $9 million every year you're seeing. So when we bring you back the tax measures we talked about with Councilmember Nickel, we'll bring you back what the projection would be if you decide to put it on the ballot and it passes.
Okay, and are we considering putting another tax measure on the ballots besides Measure Z? I know we were talking about maybe absentee landlord fee for those eyesores that we have in our city for property owners who are not taking care of those properties. Is there something that we can try to recuperate and put on the ballot this coming November in addition to Measure Z?
Those are fees that we're looking at. So we are looking at those to bring back to you. Those don't require going on the ballot, I don't believe. But it is a recommendation of our consultant that you concentrate on one at a time. You don't want to put too many things on the ballot and confuse the voters.
I would like to see two options in case one fails. In case Measure Z fails, we want to have a backup. That's my opinion. I've learned a long time ago as investing, saving my money in different accounts. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. That's always been something that I've carried on me since I've learned about finances being a young kid, and I wish our city would practice the same here. We do not put all our eggs into one basket, which is in this case Measure Z. So that just want to bring that for your consideration. And then lastly, I do appreciate that we have out here the budget workshops listed in the month of May, because I was considering mentioning that at the end of the meeting, that we should bring out the workshops. And for people who are watching the council meetings at home, obviously they're all left already, or the few that are here, I want to welcome everybody in the community to come out to these workshops, talk to your council members, tell us what your concerns are, where do you want us to focus the money on. That's where all these, the budget workshops and the capital improvement projects will come in handy. If you don't let us know, we'll figure the constituents in that area don't think it's important. So I would like to send out that invitation to everybody watching and who are here. So thank you for including it in the month of May. Hopefully the beginning of May, not at the end of May.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilman Nichol.
Yeah, just quickly, I had a question on the code enforcement item, transferring code enforcement from the police to the community economic development. What is that number? What is that actual number?
There's actually no cost to that. We're just implementing that, right? Is that correct? We're
Correct.
transferring the money over. You made the decision at the budget year, but the
Right,
money-
but
the
that
funding-
component of the police budget will now
Oh.
shift to community and
Correct.
economic development. What's that number? Do we know what it is?
Councilman, at the moment I don't, but I can get that for you.
How many code enforcement officers are we talking about? There's 4 or 5. Yeah, because I do want to talk in next year's budget. We got to have a strategy. Yeah, 3, 4, and 5. I've heard all kinds of numbers. Is there 5 code enforcement officers citywide? Okay, how many of those are volunteers? We don't have any volunteer code enforcement? So we have 2 volunteers, and then we have, how many full-time? 5. And then we got 3 support staff. Okay, so we got 8 full-time staff in code enforcement. How does that compare to a city our size? I mean, I know we got some people that work in other cities. How are we?
It's very low. Don't forget,
It's
we
very
made
low.
cuts at budget last year. and
Yeah,
that was
because I know
our-
I think our plan of adjustment, we anticipated that would be something we might contract out. I know Gary's in the audience. Was that something in our plan of adjustment for code enforcement? I thought it was.
There was a grand jury report on that, and it said we need to increase code enforcement. That's what it said.
Well, regardless, I think that's certainly an item I'd like us to really zero in on next year. Obviously, I'm glad we're transferring it over. What is the timeline? How long does that typically take to transfer everything over? Are the systems the same? Are they going to be using the same tracking system and citation system? Because I know we had 3 different citation systems in one time, one for community development, one for police, one for city attorney. We had all kinds of different systems for tracking.
Well, the transition's going to be complete actually by next Thursday, the 27th.
Okay.
Right, and all the systems transfer, all.
Do we know how many ACPs we have?
I do not know. Do you know how many?
Does anybody
ACPs?
know how many ACPs we have?
5.
Okay. So these are questions I get all the time from constituents. And, yeah, and I think I think as part of this idea of transitioning over, I'd like to see some improvement in terms of the way we're managing code enforcement, tracking ACPs, looking at some potential new models. I'd like to see us ramp up code enforcement, look at ways we can use some contracting models potentially. But again, not seeing those numbers in this budget, I'm not sure what we're dealing with in terms of what those transfer costs are going to be, how much time it's going to take. You think you'll be fully up and operational with code enforcement by the end of the fiscal year in terms of the transition?
Well, as far as, they're going to be completely transferred over by next Thursday.
Okay.
But subsequent to being transferred over, we're looking at kind of their current operations, kind of what their focus is right
Yeah.
now. Of course, as you're aware, we have.
Because that ties to fee collection too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And we've got to improve, hopefully start improving that number as well. So I'll be coming back to it, but I want to put it on your radar tonight because I get hit with it a lot, and it's very important in terms of the long-term trajectory of our community to get code enforcement fully operational. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Let's wind down. This is a receipt and file. Councilman
question.
Mulvihill.
Yeah.
Hold on, Ms. Barr, hold on.
You know, I have a hard time getting my mind around this, and I'm sure the citizens have a hard time as well. You know, when you mention, CalPERS this year, the next fiscal year, the unfunded liability will increase by $5.2 million and projected by 27, 28, 18.3 million. Now, the unfunded liability right now is how much? Is that the 420?
I can get that for you right now, but the overall unfunded liability for both miscellaneous and safety is about $415 million.
Okay, and that includes public safety and everybody else?
Correct, public safety and miscellaneous.
Okay. Now, when you say it's going to increase by 5.2 million, that's assuming we're not paying it.
No, what we're talking about is our growth rate in the unfunded will be growing by that amount.
So, in other words, because of retirements and because of, I guess, increments being paid?
You have to remember, Councilman, that the unfunded liability is a number that's assigned by PERS to each city.
Mm-hmm.
So that number reflects the unfunded,
our share of
it reflects what we owe to get our plan fully funded. So that reflects our contribution to plan assets and what our expected liabilities will be. That difference represents our unfunded component. So that grows. That grows as we go on day by day.
And don't forget that, CalPERS every year gives us an actuarial, and those interest rates can change and fluctuate up and down.
Sure. Sure, and I guess some of their investments have come in a little bit higher. I know I heard the new executive director a couple of years ago we got out of real estate investments, and she wanted to get back into real estate investments, and maybe that's coming out. But I also want to note that right now we've got a deficit of next year for 3.1 million, something like that?
Correct.
And I'm looking at if our unfunded liability goes up to 18.3 in 27, 28, and our deficit there is 21 million, well, there's our $3 million again. So we just continue to have a structural deficit of $3 million, excluding the CalPERS.
The CalPERS is clearly driving most of this. But you have to remember the projection going out is if things stay the way they are now.
Exactly.
If nothing changes, and we're not going to get to that point. Right now, we're looking at measures to try and mitigate that. But if we do nothing, yes, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I make a motion
Okay, thank you.
to adopt the staff's recommendation to the, for budget amendments.
You'd actually be adopting the resolution.
Councilmember Barr.
I had one more. Sorry, because I had two screens going at the same time and I forgot. Page 390, where it says the Animal Control Fund, there is a savings of $390,000. However, the savings are being passed on to the general fund. Once they move into the general fund, we lose that money for animal shelter?
No, we're not losing. That's a savings, just like with some of the other departments where we have the savings, we just put it in the overall budget to cover some of our additional expenditures this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
And that's different from your capital fund.
Right.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion and a second. If members would cast their votes, please.
Who seconded it? Thank you. On item 6, the motion to approve is made by Mr. Sanchez, a second by Mr. Nichol, and the item passes 6-0 with Mr. Figueroa gone.
Thank you. We'll move to our consent calendar, polling our council members. Councilmember Sanchez.
Nope.
Councilmember Barra.
None.
Councilmember Charette. Councilmember Nichol?
None.
Councilmember Richard? And Councilmember Mulville?
None tonight.
All right, move the balance, somebody?
I'll move. Second.
It's a first, I think. All right. Well, Councilmember Figueroa, do you have any items to pull? Would you like to cast your vote, sir? We'll wait.
And the rest of you,
We'll
too,
wait.
haven't voted yet.
Members would please cast their votes on the consent. Thank you. All right, very good.
The item passes 7 to
Very
0.
good, thank you. Items to be referred to committee, council members?
Yes. So I have something that I want staff to prepare and bring back to this council for discussion and possible vote. The problem, and I want everyone to listen to this. The problem of campaign expenditures has become a serious reality of American politics and San Bernardino politics. And campaigns in the city are not exempt from the corrupting effect of too much outsized influence from developers, from donors. Incidental to the high cost of election campaigning is the problem of improper influence, real or potential, exercised by campaign contributors over elected officials. It is the purpose and the intent of the City Council, I hope, in enacting legislation to place realistic and enforceable limits on the amounts individuals may contribute to political campaigns in municipal elections, to ensure and promote integrity, honesty, and fairness in the decisions of public policy. We need to ensure that in order to promote integrity, honesty, and fairness in the decision of public policies, ensure that funds and services donated to a candidate or campaign committee are used solely for lawful campaign purposes, ensure a level of discussion of public issues adequate for a viable political campaign, provide opportunity for all citizens to become candidates for public office unhindered by a need to meet an exorbitant campaign costs, and to provide full and fair enforcement of all the sections that I would bring forward to the council. I would like staff to tailor Pomona City's election code and bring that before the council at the meeting after the next for the council's review and hopefully for the council's adoption.
Okay, we'll take a vote on that,
I'll second.
please. We'll take a vote on that.
No,
Members,
is there any discussion to be had on this? I would like for this council to finally take a strong stance against the outsized influence of developers and donors in our city politics. The public is fully aware of the corrupting effect that some of these donors have in our city, and I am exhausted with how some policies here are taken into consideration
Point
with
of order.
the developers.
Does this need to be referred to committee?
No, it does not.
I
If
don't
the
know what
council
we're
so decides,
discussing.
it
Is
can
this
come before the
agendized?
agenda.
Councilmember.
I don't know if this has been agendized.
One moment. So this has not been agendized. Council, under the Brown Act, council members do have the ability to suggest items for future agendas.
Right.
It sounds like Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is suggesting for a future agenda an item for consideration of the council involving
Yes, Pomona has a city code concerning campaign contributions and expenditures. I would like I would like staff to come back with a tailored version for San Bernardino, very akin to the one that Pomona has, to bring forward before the council for approval.
I will defer to the city manager, of course, in terms of how long that might take. But in terms of the legality of the suggestion of bringing it back, as long as council members aren't opining on whether they want to adopt
I just
this or
think
not.
we have on our agenda items to be referred to committee. My understanding is that's sort of the proper process to vet considerations like this, and then if need be, come back once a committee has made a referral back.
You can do either. You can recommend that it come back to
No,
the
if this council
But then the
has in
council
the
would have to
practice,
vote on this, right?
if
To
there's
bring
been
this
past
back.
practice,
Councilmember Sanchez, just a minute, please. Let Councilman Nickel finish.
Go
his
ahead and
statement. Thank you, Councilman.
But it sounds like you're looking to make a motion to bring an item back to the council that we as a council need to vote on, correct?
yes.
Okay. And do you have a motion that you wish to make?
Yes, I make a motion that the staff come back with with an ordinance for this council to vote on that reflects or is identical to the ordinance that the city of Pomona has enacted for this council to consider and potentially enact.
It would take a considerable more amount of time to bring back an ordinance. We could bring you back Pomona so you could discuss it to see if there were areas of it you want us to include in a future ordinance.
Okay, considering that there wouldn't be a lot of legwork because this ordinance is already written, all we would have to do is change out basically the word Pomona for San Bernardino. So this is a serious issue. This is a time-sensitive issue. The public, most speakers spoke of corruption and lackluster effort by our part. This is our chance to take a stand and put our city's interests first. So I'm asking my colleagues, please, I'm humbly asking you that you put your best foot forward and pursue this option.
I will second it.
Councilman, we're voting on this. Yeah, let's go ahead and cast a vote. Councilman Charette, sure.
Well, I'm going to vote no for this, not because I don't think we need to review maybe what Mayor Pro Tem is talking about, but I'm not going to just vote for Pomona's ordinance and just change out the name.
You can go ahead and consider it.
Councilman, please, you're out of order, sir. You'll refrain from interrupting council members on the floor, sir. Just a moment.
It may be the greatest ordinance on election and what's the term I'm looking for? Campaign finance in the whole entire world. But until I read it and see it, I'm not going to just vote to say, let's do it. And that's all I'm saying.
And you'll get to do it when it's agendized.
I'm willing to talk about this issue. I'm willing to talk about it. I'm not willing to do anything right now.
Would you prefer to do it in a workshop setting? Just
That'd
informally?
be fine,
and then
but I
bring
don't
back?
think it needs to be done at the next meeting or in the next 2 weeks or in the next 2 months. It needs to be done effectively. I am tired of knee-jerk reactions by this city. It's gotten into us, and I'm not disparaging any one person or group. It's got us into trouble in the past, and we just need to be more thoughtful about what we do. And I underscore the word thoughtful about what we do and how we behave. So we don't need all this if we start behaving differently.
Councilmember Figueroa.
It's my understanding that the state of California recently also, and again, I wasn't prepared for this topic, so I don't have the exact information, but something to do with campaign contribution limits within the next year or two. So I think that would also be something to look at as well, and how that would affect this conversation.
The item before consideration, but Councilman Figueroa, is Governor Newsom has passed a new Senate bill restricting campaign contributions to the level of a state legislature. And so that's, Mr. Figueroa, for purposes on discussion on study workshop, I'd like for the council to also consider those limitations, and that'd be my request. Councilmember Barr?
Yes, just one comment. I'm an alternate for the IVDA. The IVDA has also information, if you receive a certain amount of contributions, you must recuse yourself. I think that would be something that the city should look into, especially the IVDA as an example. And I'm okay with bringing that. When I ran for office, my vow was to the voters. They put me in office, I represent them. I don't represent deep pockets, consultants, or contractors who give me money to my campaign. And I think it's a step forward to avoid any misconception from the audience that we're voting in favor of a certain applicant because they give us money to our donation, to our campaigns. So it's a step forward for our city, and I encourage it. Hopefully my colleagues also consider it as well.
Councilmember Mulvihill?
Yes, illegal cannabis outlets. Are
you referring an item or?
Yeah, I'm referring an item.
Okay, just a minute, Mr. Mulvihill. Do we need to, the maker of the motion has made his motion on this particular item. Is there consensus from the motion maker, or do we need to go to vote, Mr. Sanchez?
I'm not amending my motion, and I have a second, so I would like a vote.
Members would cast their votes, please, on the motion.
Mr. Sanchez.
And the motion.
Yes, I am voting for
City
campaign
Clerk,
finance
hold on,
reform.
Mr. Sanchez, just a moment, sir. Just You're out of order. Just hang on. We're going to work with you, sir. We're going to work with you. Hold on, sir. Just be patient. Ms. City Clerk, can you please read the motion made by Councilmember Sanchez?
He asked staff to come back with an ordinance based, a campaign finance reform ordinance based on the one from Pomona to be agendized at a future meeting. Do you want it by the second meeting in
So
March?
the one after the next,
So that would be March 18th.
yes.
Okay. And it was seconded by Ms. Ibarra.
Members would cast their votes on that, please.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
I'm only to have the conversation. I don't know necessarily if copy and paste Pomona's, though.
So no?
So is that a yes or no?
You probably leave blanks.
So no. No.
Okay. Mr. Charette? Mr. Nichol?
No.
Ms. Richard? Mr. Mulvihill? The item fails 5-2.
Okay, Ms. City Manager, we'd like to send that to study workshop. I think that's a reasonable compromise for the councilman on the end there. Councilman Mulvihill, sir?
Yes, as I started talking before, the illegal cannabis outlets, I brought this up many times before, and it's my understanding that the police department is ignoring several options. Enforcement. It seems to be symbolic of complacency. I think I don't know why they're ignoring enforcing reasonable regulations. I complained about one cannabis outlet that's within 1 block of San Bernardino High School, which is a disgrace, absolute disgrace. I've received information back from the police chief saying that they're depending on the district attorney. The district attorney historically could care less about our cannabis outlets. That's just, I would call that sandbagging. This is an outrageous situation, and it just reflects something upon the vigor of the leadership of the police department to enforce reasonable laws. We eliminated cannabis outlets 2 years ago, and since that time, there's been some personnel changes, and what we see now is a continuation. Even in a cannabis outlet, the one I'm talking about at 16th and D, there's a shooting in which police investigated, and still it's open. The police chief reported to me that he made a mistake. He thought it was on Arrowhead. What the hell is he talking about? We told him several times. I mean, is this a complacency or is it competency? But there was one speaker tonight that brought it up. But people across the city are concerned about it, and so am I. And I think we need to get to the bottom of this.
1595 Northeast, the address.
We have the address.
Thank you, Councilman.
If the police chief needs to be talked to, that there are options. And although the assistant city attorney might have some suggestions to make, she has made them before. And for some reason, our police chief has ignored that. And I think it's the city manager's responsibility to check on that.
Yes, Councilmember, you brought this to our attention several times, and we have provided an update, and it's my understanding it's with the DA's office right now.
Yeah, well, they're going to ignore it.
So.
They ignored it historically. That's their pattern.
Well, I will follow up on that particular property.
Well, I want it taken care of.
And look at options.
I see the whole issue being, the council being sandbagged, the people being sandbagged. And it's a complacent lack of vigor in enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Richard.
Thank you. One other thing that I agree with Councilmember Mulvihill, but I'd also like to have you guys look into the illegal street vending. It is happening more and more. It's not just food anymore. The corners on the weekend, in the evenings, I think they're there every night, and not just in one spot there. I believe they're in all parts of the city. And I think that it's gone on far too long. and we need to address it because a lot of it is really a safety concern. You know, we don't want people getting sick by eating the food. People were running out in the middle of the street trying to sell whatever it is they're selling. And so I would really like for that to be looked into, illegal street vending.
If I may, Mayor, I know maybe Sonia, you can address this. We were going to look at some land use components to what we have approved and what we're doing in terms of the street vendors, food vendors.
I recall when you revised your ordinance to reflect the new state law.
Right.
I would call it preemption, that one of the things we did talk about was potentially looking into land use
Right,
regulations. that you could
creating
regulate.
areas where they would be specifically
congregate.
permitted and congregate. And what's the status on that? Have we made any?
I'd have to check with staff.
Yeah.
We were still working on that. We have made some changes to the ordinance. We bring you back.
It is
forward to
getting
you.
kind of out of hand.
It is.
They're all
And
over the
with
place.
4 code enforcement
And
officers,
with
it
no
makes it
code
very
enforcement on the
difficult.
weekends, they pop up on Friday, they're all, I mean, businesses are suffering now. That's sales tax, that sales tax stuff that we need in our budget, that gets hurt when we don't have good controls on the street vendors on the weekends. And it's a growing challenge because they know they can do it. And if we don't have any regulation, we don't have any code enforcement to put some teeth into this, we're going to start seeing some real financial effects of this.
Mayor?
Thank you. Council members, Ibarra.
Yes, will my colleagues, Mulvihill and Bissine, Richard, be amenable to also perhaps even have staff bring a list or report of all those dispensaries? For one, the dispensaries that have been issued ACPs, when they were issued. And second, for the illegal street vendors, if we can have a list of those that do have permits with the city. Usually I get approached by certain people saying that they do have permits. However, there's no way I can confirm whether or not they are. And based on how they're out there conducting business, it doesn't look like it's something that the county would have approved. So, I mean, if we can have a list of those that do have permits with the city, that'd be great.
We can certainly pull that information together, and I'll go over it with the city attorney and see if we need to provide it to you in closed session or open session, certainly.
One item I'd like to join and support is that we need to look at the opportunities, Ms. City Manager, on the city landfill. I'd like to agendize that potentially under closed session, the privileges of that opportunity for real property negotiation is Sportsplex. Sportsplex opportunities in our community are a very, very big opportunity to provide and bolster the hospitality lane corridor as well as the hospitality lane, TOT, hotel, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, et cetera. And Councilman Figueroa, on your
That's
support.
actually what I was going to talk about, Ms. City Manager. You and I had a very productive conversation I don't remember exactly, a few weeks ago regarding the Sportsplex. I'd like to see that actually come back. I was under the impression that it would be back, or it would be on the agenda by now, but I would definitely like to see that.
When can we get that?
I need to understand exactly what you want me to bring back, first of all, and then I would like the majority to vote on that, please.
Okay, all right.
I'd also like to go back to Councilmember Sanchez. We are going to have a workshop on that. Do we have concurrence that we want to have a workshop on the campaign contributions? Okay.
Well, as a compromise to this councilman, I suggested that it be brought back before the council in study workshop on campaign contributions, as well as the Governor Newsom issue related to campaign contributions. Correct. Now, regarding the Sportsplex, it's more of a policy direction that you're looking for, and I appreciate that. I think what we need to understand and really attempt to address and provide direction to our staff is what is the future of the landfill? What are the opportunities? As I understand, there are several individuals that are very interested in occupying. I've met with 2 development firms that want to continue that opportunity and to see the vision of both Councilman Figueroa and myself on the Sportsplex opportunity. So if we could get a briefing and an update with some possible potential direction from the council, that would be really and greatly appreciated.
I mean, it's going to take some time to pull this together. We've got many things going on. If you could give us a little bit of
Sure,
time.
that's fine.
You know,
Can we get it possibly by maybe April?
April's doable.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the second meeting in April? Is that all right?
Councilman?
Okay.
We just don't want to let the
No, I
opportunity
understand.
vanish
I
before us.
understand.
Do you need a vote on that?
Yeah, I would appreciate it.
Members,
Just
please.
knowing there's concurrence.
A voice vote. Call for the vote. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Charette?
This all sounds great, and I think I've been on record saying that what's good for the 3rd is good for the 4th, is good for the 7th, but I don't know anything about this sportsplex. I mean, I don't know anything about anything, and I'd like to have some discussion about it. I guess that's what we'll do when it's brought back. Perhaps there's a better location, for example, than where they're talking about, but it sounds to me like there's some, the mayor and the 3rd Ward councilman kind of off on their own, looking at some project that maybe has great merit, and I'd be more than happy to support, but I'm just in the dark on it, so just, those are my comments.
And Councilman, that's exactly why we're asking and bringing it before the council, is to provide further clarity, clarification, understanding of this situation on the landfill, get an update, and have staff report back to the council so that they can make a qualified decision on the direction of the landfill. So that would be really the item to be discussed. We'll call for a roll call vote on it, please.
Well, I'm assuming Mr. Figueroa made the motion. I'm sorry, who seconded it? I'm sorry, who seconded it? Thank you. Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Mr. Nichol? Ms. Richard? And Mr. Mulvihill? The item passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll move for adjournment. We thank you, public, for coming out tonight, and our meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.